Chapter 409. Though it had a powerful aura, the specter wouldn't die so easily. Even after being cut in half by Su Shenxing, the huge sea monster specter had only turned into many small luminous specter, and there was no telling when they would reassemble themselves. But the bigger problem now was that Lu was nowhere to be seen in those light blobs. How could this be? King Kong's voice became sorrowful. Could it be that Lu is already? Su Shenxing could only remain silent. Sure enough, this world was not that naive. In any case, it was already dark now, and those small light blobs had a tendency to gather towards them. King Kong had no choice but to gather his sorrowful mood. He brought Su Shenxing and the beast-eared girl back to the shore. Not sure if it was because he was too sorrowful or simply overloaded, but King Kong's flying speed was obviously much slower. The light blobs behind them were getting closer and closer. They would probably catch up with them soon. King Kong, leave me and this girl by the shore and go back to the cafe first. Seeing this, Su Shenxing could only say so. No. King Kong gritted his teeth and flew with all his might. I will never give up on anyone again. Su Shenxing said in his heart. No, that's not what I meant. The key was that whether it was Su Shenxing or the beast-eared girl with the indestructible protection, they would not be swallowed by the small light blobs. Therefore it should not be a problem even if they went back a little slower. However, at this moment, the light blobs behind them suddenly gathered and turned into the shape of a big bird. Although the size of the big bird was far smaller than the sea monster, it was still the size of a bus. Now, even Su Shenxing felt that they should run away quickly. It did not feel good to be swallowed by this thing. Just as they were about to be caught by the bird-shaped light blobs, a strong light that was enough to make King Kong cover his eyes and scream was suddenly emitted from the beach. Su Shenxing and the beast-eared girl fell into the sea because of this. Behind them, the spirit was also reduced to ashes by the powerful beam of light. When Su Shenxing climbed ashore, he found a large searchlight on the beach. The wires behind the searchlight were connected to Dehei's body. It seemed to be powered by Dehei's battery. From the looks of it, Dehei did not leave just now. Instead, he went to look for the searchlight. Well done, Dehei. Su Shenxing, who was soaked all over, gave the robot a thumbs up. Please call me LB, Mr. Su. As usual, Dehei replied in an electronic voice. It is our duty to provide convenience to our customers. The business district is more tolerant of our customers, and many temporary agreements are easily passed. In addition, I had to borrow some external help to transport the lamp here in time. External force? Su Shenxing asked curiously. Then he was splashed with water by the beast-eared girl who was trembling again. Xiaohei, is this angle okay? The green-haired girl in a leather jacket poked her head out from behind the searchlight and asked. However, the big black robot did not pay any attention to her. Green. King Kong, whose eyes had recovered, cried and threw himself into the robot's arms. You weren't eaten by the spirit? Su Shenxing asked in surprise. That's because I walk slowly on land. The robot hugged King Kong and caressed King Kong's back. She replied shyly, when I got here you guys had already flown away and you guys had already swam away. I can't fly or swim, so I could only worry on the shore. I happened to see Xiaohei moving something, so I went over to help. You walked slowly. Su Shenxing felt weak all over. Perhaps it was because they had been fighting for their lives here, risking their lives to kill a gigantic specter. But this specter was a little slower than the rest. Isn't it best that everyone is fine? The beast-eared girl, who was originally unhappy, returned to her cheerful self. Sure enough, little Su is a friend who can create miracles. You still dare to say that? Isn't this caused by your false military report? Su Shenxing knocked on the girl's head. The girl's ears drooped and her tail drooped, showing a pitiful expression. Then Su Shenxing stopped abusing the animal and looked at the sea with emotion. Because of the searchlight, the sea was now sparkling. The originally dangerous light balls did not dare to come close and only floated on the surface of the sea like phosphorescent flames. The scene was unexpectedly beautiful. In the dusky sky, the shadow of the star ring could be vaguely seen. This was a beautiful scene that could never be seen on Earth. This is really great. King Kong, who was still in Green's arms, said in a muffled voice. Yes, it's great that everyone is safe. The beast-eared girl said with a silly smile. What a beautiful scene. Green was like Su Shenxing looking at the rare scenery. If it wasn't for everyone, I definitely wouldn't be able to see such a scene in my life. To be able to end with a happy ending and to be able to see such a beautiful night scene, Su Shenxing suddenly felt that it was worth it. Battery, battery. Just as Su Shenxing was immersed in the emotions brought about by all this, He suddenly fell to the ground with a thud and said in a voice similar to when the computer was down. Then the searchlight dimmed. Why does He always drop the ball at times like this? The bee-steered girl raised He and grumbled loudly as she looked at the massive light coming at her from all directions. Then she quickly ran to the cafe. Su Shenxing sighed helplessly and followed behind the girl. On the other hand, King Kong spread his wings and flew toward the abandoned cafe with Lu in his arms. In a sense, Su Shenxing had fulfilled his promise and taught King Kong how to fly. Therefore King Kong agreed to help them get to the park. However, they couldn't just leave like this. If they wanted to get to the park, they needed to make some other preparations. Let's not talk about other things for now, but the raft must be made properly, Su Shenxing said seriously. Can't we just use the door plank? Green asked curiously. It's too narrow, He might fall in. Su Shenxing pointed at He, who was still charging in the corner. It's okay, He seems to be waterproof. No, that's not the main problem. Chapter 4:10. To be honest, Su Shenxing's handicraft skills were not high, so in the end he just hastily tied the wooden door and a few wooden tables together to complete the preparations for crossing the residential area and heading to the park area. In addition, when He used his own battery to turn on the searchlight, Su Shenxing was deeply inspired, so he specially put a few lights on the raft this time. Although according to the plan, if they set off in the morning, they should be able to reach the park area before dark. But there was nothing more untrustworthy than the so-called plan. If an accident happened and they had to stay on the sea for a night, then this light was undoubtedly one of the most reliable things they could rely on. By the way, after He learned of Su Shenxing's plan, he very formally said to Su Shenxing, "My battery is not for commercial use. Please don't use it without permission. At least pay some money," and so on. But all of his words were ignored by Su Shenxing. In addition, the relationship between LV Heng and King Kong seemed to have undergone a subtle change. I've learned how to fly, can I still continue to live with you? King Kong asked LV Heng hesitantly, as if he was worried that he would hear a negative answer. But of course this kind of thing would not happen as a novel about healing introverts. Therefore even the dullest bee-steered girl curiously asked Su Shenxing the next night, "Why does LV Heng smell like King Kong?" "Children don't need to know about this kind of thing. Go to bed early, we still have things to do tomorrow." Therefore on the third day Su Shenxing, who felt that he might have tooth decay if he stayed any longer, decided to set off. The sea in the morning was calm and the sky looked clear. It was a good day to set sail. After dragging the self-made raft into the sea, Su Shenxing and the others said goodbye to LV Heng. The two who needed to be separated for the time being were especially reluctant. "LV Heng, remember to eat on time." King Kong, "Okay." "LV Heng, you can't just eat peas, it's not good for your health." King Kong, "Okay." Lu Heng said, "Although you don't like to drink water, it's still very important to replenish your water supply on time." King Kong, "Okay." Lu Heng said, "Be careful at night. If you see that it's getting late, you have to find a place to stay. Don't." Su Shenxing, "Are you an old woman?" In short, after their affectionate conversation was interrupted by Su Shenxing, the raft officially set sail. Of course, because of this, Su Shenxing received a lot of supercilious looks from King Kong. It seemed that this girl liked to be talked about. What a strange interest. The sea was quite wide and King Kong could not always fly to pull the rope for them. So when King Kong rested, the bee-steered girl would jump into the sea and push the raft forward with her dog paddle. Su Shenxing had nothing to do on the raft, but because of this he had a lot more time to think. Ever since he came to this world he had been running all over the place because of various things. Only now did he have a chance to rest a little. Why did he come to this world? Although he was almost used to time travel, it was still the first time that he had suddenly transmigrated without any warning. And for some reason, Emily had not taken the initiative to contact him. Even if he tried to contact her, the response he received was that everything was normal. Putting aside the reason for his transmigration and his own situation, this world itself was quite strange. Where did this bee-steered girl come from? Where did the original humans of this world go? What was the original form of the spirit? According to the common argument in the ACG, it was not impossible that the spirit was a monster transformed from a human. But if that was the case, what happened to the humans? Why did they become such a monster? And to be honest, the destination of this trip was also very mysterious. Who is this teacher? Although the Pomeranian seemed to think highly of her, to put it bluntly, with that girl's IQ, even a swindler would be able to fool her. She really had no reference value. But it seemed that the other beast-eared girls also knew this teacher, and had a certain sense of respect for him. So for the time being he could still look forward to it. Well, because he did not know whether it was male or female, he would temporarily use it to refer to it. Could it answer his current doubts? As a native of this world, did she know how to return to her original world? And this world was clearly desolate, but there were still some facilities that were still operating. For example, power generation facilities, water facilities, emergency food facilities for Dahay and the other robots. Obviously, it was very difficult to do without professional maintenance. So how did these facilities actually operate? Little Sue, what are you thinking about? The beast-eared girl who had just finished pushing the raft and climbed up the mountain asked Su Shinshing curiously. At this time, Su Shinshing noticed that there was an old red belt under the girl's neck. There was also a small golden bell on the belt. But this bell might have been broken. It did not make a sound, so Su Shinshing did not notice it. Nothing, the bell on your neck. Is it this? I have had it for as long as I can remember. Although I don't know when I got it, it is very important to me. It is my treasure. Even if it's little Sue, I can't give it to you. Well, at most I can let you see it. The girl tilted her head and one of her ears drooped. After hesitating for a long time, she seemed to have made up her mind and asked, Little Sue, do you care? If that's the case, I can lend it to you to play with for a while. No, I'm just asking. Su Shinshing waved his hand. Because this bell was more delicate than the girl's clothes, it felt more artificial, so he was a little curious. But Su Shinshing knew that his brain was only at the level of an ordinary person. Even if he saw it, he probably would not get any useful information. And the difference between the two was too subtle. Maybe he was just overthinking. Mr. Su. Suddenly, King Kong, who was flying in the sky and holding on to the rope, called out to Su Shinshing. Originally, she also called Su Shinshing little Sue like the beast-eared girl. But under Su Shinshing's strict protest, she finally called him Mr. Su Shinshing like Dahay. For some reason, until now, none of the beast-eared girls were willing to call Su Shinshing by his name. What's wrong? Su Shinshing, who was lying on the raft, suddenly jumped up like a carp. Is it a super large spirit attack or a tornado or vortex? No matter what it is, bring it on. My wooden stick is already thirsty for blood. No, King Kong said helplessly, we've reached the park area. We've arrived? What happened to the accident? Chapter 4:11. After saying goodbye to King Kong, Su Shinshing and the others continued to go deeper into the park area. Su Shinshing's current appearance was a little comical. He had found a nylon rope from somewhere and tied several wooden sticks together. He carried them on his back. At first glance he looked like an ancient Chai He Lang. Su Shinshing also knew that his image was a little subtle, but the situation was urgent. Now was not the time to care about his personal image. Unlike the entertainment district and the commercial district, the park area had the highest degree of naturalization. If it weren't for the fact that they could occasionally see some park facilities while trekking through the lush forest, it would be impossible to believe that this was actually a man-made park in the past. Are you sure you didn't lead us the wrong way? Su Shinshing, who was struggling through the forest, asked gloomily. It should be this way. The beast-eared little girl, who was originally full of confidence, now looked uncertain. But I remember that there weren't so many trees in the past. Su Shinshing looked at the surrounding trees suspiciously. Although they weren't so thick that it would take a person to wrap their arms around them, most of them couldn't have grown in a short 3 to 4 years. This undoubtedly reduced the credibility of the child's words. Fortunately, she didn't screw up. After passing through the trees, what appeared in front of Su Shinshing was a large section of concrete that was tilted up due to the change of the site. In this section, a sewer opening was exposed. It's here. The little girl wagged her tail and excitedly pointed to the sewer opening. Teacher lives in here. It looked like this place had been abandoned for a long time. It was covered with moss and it felt soft when stepping on it, like stepping on the meat of some animal. This sewer was different from the sewer in the commercial district. In general, it was much smaller, but it was enough for an adult to walk in without bending down. There seemed to be a lot of air holes at the top of the sewer that were connected to the ground. During the day, sunlight would shine through these air holes, so the sewer wasn't as dark as it looked. In addition, there were small lights on both sides of the sewer like the ones in the commercial district, which seemed to be used at night. There was no dirty water in the sewer, not even a trace of water, so it should have been stopped long ago. After taking a few steps inside, they encountered an iron fence that separated the sewer. There was a small door on the iron fence. At this time, the door seemed to be tightly shut. There was an iron chain wrapped around the door handle and a rusty lock hung on it. Behind the iron fence, there was something similar to the searchlight found by DeHay. The wires behind the searchlight were connected in a very layman's way, and extended all the way into the depths of the sewer. Why is this iron gate closed? The bestiared girl tried to pull the door on the iron fence. Although the girl looked like a weak little girl, Su Xinxing knew that she was a strong girl who could easily carry DeHay, who weighed hundreds of kilograms for a distance of 5 meters. If she was on Earth, she would definitely be a tough girl. However, the iron gate on the fence didn't budge. It seemed that not only was it tightly shut, even the iron fence itself was very strong. Su Xinxing couldn't help but have an ominous premonition. Could it be that my protagonist aura is taking effect again? Why is it that other people's protagonist aura can turn misfortune into blessings, but mine always brings strange troubles? Girl, step back a little. So he simply pulled out a piece of firewood from behind him. I mean a wooden stick, and silently cut the iron fence. Mr. Su, you are destroying public property, DeHay immediately said. It doesn't matter, no one else saw it. Fine. I'm not listening. When the iron gate fell, clanging noises could be heard from not far away. What's that sound? The girl's ears suddenly straightened, and it seemed that she was a little frightened. Su Xinxing threw the remains of the wooden stick aside and looked at the iron fence under his feet. Behind the small door, there was a thin iron wire that connected to the ceiling. It's a mechanism, a simple but practical alarm device. Because he had seen something similar before, Su Xinxing immediately recognized the real purpose of the thing. He kicked the iron wire and explained to the girl, this iron wire hangs a basket and there are some messy things in it. From the sound just now, it should be something like a can. The basket will maintain a very delicate state of balance. Once someone opens the iron gate, the basket will immediately overturn under the influence of the iron wire, and the things inside will fall to the ground and make a sound, acting as an alarm. While they were talking, 4 figures flashed out from the fork in the sewer ahead. They kept a certain distance from Su Xinxing's group. Even if he couldn't see their expressions because of the light, Su Xinxing could still feel the hostility emanating from them. Is one of them your teacher? Because of the firewood in his hand, Su Xinxing was now a lot calmer, and he even had the time to ask the girl. The bestiared girl sniffed as if she was sniffing something. After a while, she shook her head. No, they are not my teacher. Who are you and why did you break in here? At this time, one of the 4 people in front of him, who was probably the leader, asked. Her tone was quite harsh. Even if she didn't say it explicitly, there was no doubt that she had identified Su Xinxing's group as intruders. In a sense, Su Xinxing, who casually broke the door, was indeed an intruder. I'm a Pomeranian from the entertainment district and I'm here to find my teacher. The bestiared girl took the lead and said, the master is not seeing guests recently. The other party refused without hesitation, but seemed to understand that Su Xinxing's group didn't mean to invade, so the hostility was slightly reduced. However, Su Xinxing's eyes lit up. Originally, he thought that the bestiared girl's teacher was most likely not here, and that he would have to complete at least 8 or 10 missions to find her. But now, from the other party's words, it seemed that the teacher was still here, and simply didn't want to see outsiders. If the teacher doesn't see other people, what should we do if we have new friends? The bestiared girl asked curiously. If there is no teacher, how can we learn and adapt? It doesn't matter, there won't be new friends anymore. After a moment of silence, the other party said slowly, but there was an indescribable weight in her words. You should go back too. Now, no matter what you do, it's meaningless. Soon all your friends will be killed by Spectre. Compared to dying in a foreign land, it's better to die in your own home. Chapter 4:12. Although the girl seemed to have inadvertently revealed some very important information, Su Xinxing wasn't most concerned about that. Sorry, even though you said that, I still want to meet the master that you mentioned. He took a step forward, causing everyone's attention to be diverted to him as he spoke. Impossible. The girl refused stiffly as if there was no room for negotiation. Just as Su Shenxing was thinking about what Emoli always said when he played games, take down everyone you discover is a perfect infiltration. Just as he was about to follow this idea, the girl changed the topic. Unless you can defeat the four of us. Speaking of which, who are you? I didn't see you when I was studying here. The bestiared girl asked curiously. Then the four girls who looked very serious revealed a look that said, "We've been waiting for you to ask this question for a long time." Under Su Shenxing's astonished gaze, they made a pose similar to the Japanese special forces, although there was one less. We're the disciples who are willing to follow the master's cultivation because we admire the master's power. I'm Lubowski. The shortest girl with short tawny hair shouted loudly. I'm you. Next was a girl with short silver hair who was slightly taller than the tawny girl. I'm Jakaria. Next was a black-haired girl who stood on one leg and was still swaying. I'm Xiaobai. The last one was a white-haired girl who was talking to Su Shenxing and looked like a leader. Protecting the peace of the park area is our responsibility, the hamster guard. Wait a second, it seemed like someone who wasn't a hamster was mixed in. Even the name was different from the others. Su Shenxing felt an old curse rising up to his throat. However, if he pointed it out, he would probably have to continue arguing with them for a long time. Thus, he pretended not to hear it and clapped his hands perfunctorily. Oh, that's amazing. That's what I wanted to say. The Pomeranian girl who realized that her line was stolen grabbed Su Shenxing's arm and said, "So, I just need to defeat all of you?" Su Shenxing patted the girl's head and she obediently quieted down. While thinking that it was easy to deal with her, he asked the hamster guard over there. Fighting is only a part of it. The four of us have our own strengths. You have to defeat us in our strengths to be qualified to meet the master." Xiaobai said loudly. Understood. Which one is first? Su Shenxing didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. After all, it wasn't like he hadn't encountered such a situation before. Back when he hadn't inherited the holy sword, he had encountered a similar situation with his friends. In that adventure, the fierce battle of fists against flesh, the friendship of comrades who trusted each other and entrusted their backs to each other due to trust, the strategy of acting according to the overall situation, the judgment of daring to sacrifice and bear all responsibilities just to walk on the right path, the courage to face blades and magic, and a little bit of luck intertwined together to form a blood-boiling epic that was praised by future generations. That was also one of the battles that left the deepest impression on Su Shenxing. Although the situation was a little different now, he felt that his long-dormant passion seemed to have awakened again. Of course, I'll be the first. The girl who called herself Lubowski took out a stick from nowhere. It was different from the wooden stick that Su Shenxing used as a sword. The stick of the girl with short tawny hair was longer, and the way she held it reminded Su Shenxing of the Shaolin monks in the wuxia TV series. "Ada, I'm good at fighting." As she spoke, she waved the stick. The stick in Lubowski's hand flew up, down, left and right. It was really impenetrable. Under the sunlight shining through the holes, the shadows of the stick looked both real and illusory. The bright white color was very beautiful. In the end, she suddenly stood still. She probably wanted to strike a handsome pose, but because she used too much strength, the stick in her hand slipped out of her hand. With a clang, it hit the back of her head. Then she knelt down. The Pomeranian girl's ears fell down and her tail was between her legs. "Why, it looks painful." "Su Shenxing, the hamster army, despicable foreigner, you actually used such a trick." Little White pointed at Su Shenxing and said sternly. "No, this is self-destruction, right?" Su Shenxing replied in a daze. "You won't be so lucky next time. Wong, please." Little White obviously did not intend to listen to Su Shenxing's explanation and immediately sent out a second general. "Leave it to me." The silver-haired girl said confidently, "I'm different from Lubowski, I'm a wise general. So I'll give you an intelligence question to test you." Su Shenxing thought to himself that this was not good. He did not know the common sense of this world and it would be troublesome if he answered wrongly. However, he could not back down now. He could only wait for the other party to give him the question. Now there are King Kong parrots and green iguanas in the same cage. There are 35 heads above and 94 legs below. How many King Kong parrots and green iguanas are there? The girl named Wang asked her question proudly. Su Shenxing's expression said, "Are you kidding me?" When he almost blurted out, There are 23 King Kong parrots and 12 green iguanas. The Pomeranian girl suddenly said to the silver-haired girl, "You don't know the answer to such a difficult question, right?" "Nonsense, of course I know," the silver-haired girl retorted. "Then tell me about it. You can't just tell me the answer. You have to tell me how you calculated it," the Pomeranian girl said. Only, that, the silver-haired girl was so anxious that her face turned red. After a while, white smoke seemed to come out of her head. She fell backward on the ground and her eyes turned into mosquito coils. "If you really don't know." The Pomeranian girl wagged her tail proudly and rubbed against Su Shinshing, asking for a reward. "Su Shinshing, the hamster army, you're too despicable. I won't let you do whatever you want." Little White was so angry that her tail stood up. "That's why they destroyed themselves." Su Shinshing rubbed Puppy Girl's head in a daze and said, "You're all here to be funny, right?" Chapter 413. I'm up next. Gakaliya, the third member of the hamster army, challenged Su Shinshing. "I'm good at all kinds of gambling games. You can choose how you want to compete." The black-haired girl looked gloomy. "I choose rock, paper, scissors," Su Shinshing said without hesitation. "Huh. Rock, paper, scissors, 1 round. Rock, paper, scissors. Hey. Yeah, I won." The black-haired girl was defeated by Su Shinshing in a second. Ignoring the black-haired girl in the corner, Su Shinshing looked at the last member of the hamster army and said, "Tell me, what do you want to compete in?" "I'm quite well read after learning from the master. How about this, you tell me a joke. If I laugh, you win." Little White rolled its eyes and thought of an idea. Su Shinshing pondered for a while and started telling jokes. Someone was curious about the life of penguins, so he went to interview a group of penguins and asked them what they were doing. The first penguin said, "Eat, work, beat, dowdo." The second penguin said, "Eat, work, beat, dowdo." He interviewed the 99th penguin and the answers were the same. When he saw the last penguin, he realized that it was unhappy, so he asked, "Why are you unhappy?" "Ah, I know this joke." Little White snorted coldly with a look of superiority, as if saying, "Is this all you've got?" "Because it's dowdo." "No," Su Shinshing answered seriously. "It said, because I'm alive." "Peef." A smile flashed across Little White's face. "Ah, you're smiling." The Pomeranian girl's sharp eyes noticed it. She pointed at Xiaobai and said loudly, "Teske, you win." Little White didn't deny it, but it looked regretful. "I didn't expect the trap to be hidden in that place." Oh. As expected of Little Su, you're amazing." The Pomeranian girl cheered. She turned around and saw Su Shinshing hugging his knees and leaning against the wall. His eyes were like a salted fish. Xiao Su, what's wrong?" the girl asked with concern. "It's nothing. I just feel like the beautiful memories in my heart have been tarnished by this farce," Su Shinshing said with empty eyes. As they walked further into the sewers, the environment became even quieter. When they reached the deepest part, there was actually a rather spacious room. The room was filled with water. Standing in the sewer tunnel, which was similar to the corridor, and looking down, he could only see darkness. He could vaguely see some glimmers of light, but he didn't know how deep the water was. In the center of the room was a round platform. A walkway from the sewer was connected to the round platform at the same level as the water. "This is as far as I can send you." Xiaobai pointed at the round table. "The master's right there. Remember not to do anything too rude, okay?" "Thanks." Because there were many forks and turns in the sewers, without Little White leading the way, Su Shinshing really didn't have much confidence in finding this place. Thus, Su Shinshing and the others walked through the walkway and arrived at the master's place. The master was also a young girl, but she was different from all the beast mothers that Su Shinshing had met before. The master seemed to have a kind of accumulated calmness that greatly contrasted with her youthful appearance. She had light green hair, wore a pair of tortoiseshell glasses and wore a white coat. However, under the white coat one could see that the front was white while the back and sides were dark green. Behind the glasses, her pupils were deep and calm, as if they could see through everything in the world. Even if one just stared into her eyes, it could make one calm down. "Teacher, long time no see." The Pomeranian was the first to pounce on her and said intimately, "Pomeranian, it's been so long, but you're still the same." The other party's face also showed a slight smile as she slowly replied. Then she looked at Su Shinshing with her deep eyes. "Foreigner, you came here to ask me a question, right?" As long as I know the answer, I will answer it. You know that I'm not from this world? Su Shinxing couldn't help but be a little surprised. Not only that, I also know that you're dreaming. The other party continued to say slowly. Su Shinxing was speechless. You're neither a physical body nor a soul. The you here is just a wisp of consciousness and thoughts in a dream. She slowly closed her eyes. Probably something is calling you, but this world is too far away from you. In the end, you'll come here in this state. I see. No wonder Su Shinxing had always felt a little strange. Why hadn't his strength recovered until now? Even if he was really allergic to seafood, it had lasted a little too long this time. He pulled up his sleeves and found that the red rash that appeared because of the allergic reaction had long disappeared. It was precisely because it was only a wisp of his own consciousness that appeared here, and this wisp of consciousness was projected through the dream, that it was so weak to this extent. Unless he summoned the holy sword, it would be difficult to even annihilate a planet. When he first came to this world and studied the light cluster, he didn't seriously contribute, so he didn't notice it. It wasn't until the next day that he discovered the abnormality. As a result, he mistakenly thought that it was related to allergies, and because of this he subconsciously thought that it was allergies that limited him. Then what is it that is calling me? Why is it calling me? And how do you know these things? Su Shinxing continued to ask. For a native of a planet in a world, she knew too much. Not to mention the relevant information about Su Shinxing, even the mysteries of the world itself were not something that anyone could know. First of all, as for what is calling you, to be honest, I don't know. After all, even if it's just a wisp of your consciousness, something that can cross thousands of worlds to guide you here is too dangerous for me. I don't want to have anything to do with that kind of thing, so I didn't investigate. The other party shook her head first, then she smiled and said, as for why I know these things. You may not believe it, but in fact this is what the world told me. It is afraid of something, so it can't show up and tell you everything in person, but at the same time, the world itself has an inexplicable sense of intimacy with you, so it told you some things through my mouth. But after all, I'm just a mortal, and the secrets that I can bear are limited, so I don't know much from the world. Other than that, she then asked Su Shinxing, is there anything else you want to know? Chapter 4:14. So what happened to the humans in this world? After pondering for a moment, Su Shinxing chose a question to ask. They're all dead. At the moment of the disaster, no one was spared. The master replied softly. What's the disaster? Is it a specter? I don't know. At that time, I hadn't turned into a friend yet, so I don't have much of an impression of it. The master shrugged. Besides, I don't know the true face of the specter either. Then you. What's the matter with friends? Su Shinxing continued to ask. I thought you'd already noticed. The master looked a little surprised. She fiddled with the ends of her hair and then continued to explain, friends are humanized, mainly feminized, animals. However, this island, Ranachard, is an artificial island. There are no wild animals on the island, so that friends are all human pets. After a pause, she added in a somewhat low voice, and experimental animals. Then what's the reason for the friendization? Why does this happen? Friedinization seems to have something to do with the research project in the central laboratory on Ranachard Island, but I'm not quite sure what's going on. How should he put it? Although she did seem to have answered all his questions, when he thought about it carefully, it seemed that she did not answer anything. Su Shinxing did not like the feeling of being half-covered. Probably sensing something from Su Shinxing's expression, the master also showed a wry smile on her face. Don't look at me like that. It's not that I didn't tell you on purpose, but I really don't know. Then she told him about her situation. I was originally a pet tortoise in the central laboratory. The intuition of animals is much stronger than that of humans. Even at that time I seemed to have felt something. After the laboratory was affected by the disaster, I escaped from the aquarium and turned into a friend on the way to the park area. Even now, I'm still filled with trepidation towards the central zone. At the same time, perhaps due to the calamity, I can vaguely sense the existence of world and obtain some information from it. After that, other pets started to turn into friends one after another. However, since they had just turned into friends, they could only rely on their instincts, and after they turned into friends, they would become the targets of the specter. That was why I started to teach them the correct or rather human-like behavior and how to use the legacies left behind by humans so that they could survive on this island. Su Shenxing thought for a while, but did not find any obvious loopholes in the other party's words. Or rather, until now Su Shenxing had never met a liar. Then why did Xiao Bai say that no new friends will be born and that all the friends will be killed by the specter? Su Shenxing used the two sentences that Little White said when they first met the hamster army as a question. The appearance of friends has a pattern. Until now there have been a total of 4 waves of friends. Pomeranians and I were among the first wave, and it was around the time when humans were completely wiped out. You could say that we were the earliest friends. Xiao Bai and the others appeared 9 years ago. After that, a large number of friends appeared 6 years ago and 3 years ago. Theoretically, there should be 1 this year as well, but in fact until today there hasn't been a single friend this year. Speaking of this, the master's expression immediately turned serious. On the other hand, the specter's mode of action has not changed for 12 years. But for some reason a large number of supersized specter have appeared this year, and their speed of evolution is getting faster and faster. I'm afraid that after a while, relying solely on human legacies will no longer be able to deal with them. Teacher? The Pomeranian, who was lying in her arms, straightened up and looked at the master worriedly. Then the little girl tried her best to encourage the master. It's okay, we still have little Su. He's very powerful. I know, child. But unfortunately, this situation can't be changed by just relying on one person. The master touched the little girl's hair and said bitterly. How pessimistic. Su Shenxing did not think so. Logically speaking, as the savior, he alone had turned the tide and saved the world too many times. Maybe because my body is a tortoise. When there's something I can't solve, I'll retreat into my shell. Isn't that what friends are good at? The master shrugged, then turned around and pulled out an old book from the bookshelf on the platform and handed it to Su Shenxing. In short, if I'm not mistaken, all the mysteries are in the underground laboratory in the central area. The thing that summoned you to this world should also be in there. If you want to know the truth, go to the central area. This book is the notebook of a researcher in the laboratory. Maybe it will be of some help to you. Haven't you thought of investigating the laboratory in the central area yourself? Su Shenxing raised his eyebrows and asked as he held the notebook with yellowed pages. How much do you expect from a cowardly tortoise? That's true. Su Shenxing opened the notebook non-committally. The notebook seemed to have been torn and the spine was crookedly glued with cellophane tape. To be honest, in a place surrounded by water, it was lucky that the pages of the notebook hadn't become moldy. The text in the notebook was naturally not Chinese, but belonged to the same system as the text on the road signs and other things along the way. And in terms of content, this was not so much a research notebook but something like a diary or essay. Can you read the words on it? The master asked Su Shenxing. Just barely. Su Shenxing replied casually. Although Su Shenxing's blessing of all races could indeed translate words, compared to ordinary words, this thing wasn't smart enough to help Su Shenxing adjust the grammar of the words. Therefore, when he looked at the words alone, it felt like he had flipped through an article on a computer. Of course, it basically didn't affect his understanding of the content. Then Su Shenxing raised his head and asked curiously, "Don't you understand it?" It's not that I don't understand it, but many of the words are guesses. After all, I haven't systematically learned the human language. All the words were slowly deciphered by some simple books in the past 12 years. The master didn't insist that he could understand it and nodded honestly. No wonder Bratter and Golden Silk Bear treated the novel as a treasure map and looked for treasures all over the world. It turned out that the problem was here. Chapter 4:15. By the way, Pomeranian, I have some biscuits. Do you want to eat them? The master suddenly asked the Pomeranian girl. Hey, biscuits. I haven't eaten them for a long time. Where? The girl asked, wagging her tail. For some reason, Su Shenxing felt a little uncomfortable when he saw the girl's expression, as if his dog had been snatched by someone else. You can ask Little White. She knows where it is. Yeah. The girl opened her hands and ran down the aisle. After running a few steps, she did not forget to turn back and shout at Su Shenxing, Little Su, wait for me here. I'll get you some biscuits." After that, she ran away like a gust of wind. After the girl's figure disappeared at the fork, Su Shenxing closed the notebook in his hand and asked the master, "So after sending the girl away, do you have anything to say to me?" Are you going to the central area? Of course. Su Xinxing answered without hesitation. It wasn't easy to find a way to solve all the problems, so Su Xinxing naturally wouldn't just wait. In that case, I hope you don't take the Pomeranian with you. The master said very seriously. Don't worry, listen to me first. Su Xinxing did not rush to lose his temper, but quietly waited for the other party to continue. As I said before, the Pomeranian and I are the first animals to be turned into friends. But in fact, except for me, the other animal mothers in the same batch as us are not in good physical condition. It may be because they have reached the limit of movement after being turned into friends, or it may simply be because of their lifespan. Maybe you don't know, but I have known her for a long time, and I can feel that the Pomeranian is not as lively as she was 12 years ago. I'm afraid she will soon reach her limit. Su Xinxing was silent. If I'm not mistaken, the reason why she's able to maintain such a lively state is because she met a human, which is you. Because she's a mother of a pet dog, she's naturally fond of humans like you. However, this kind of ability that relies purely on willpower shouldn't last for too long. Grandmaster sighed. What's more, the underground laboratory in the central district is not a safe place. The sense of danger is like a dark cloud that cannot be dispelled. It has been hanging over Ronnie Hard for the past 12 years. You won't see a single living creature there, and you won't meet any other friends. As long as you are a living creature, you won't be able to ignore the fear in your heart towards that dangerous place. Even if you can protect yourself, will you have the strength to protect the Pomeranians? If he was in his perfect state, Su Xinxing would probably nod without hesitation, or even be more arrogant, saying that he could save him even if he died. However, the current Su Xinxing did not have the strength to do so. Thus, after a moment of silence, he silently turned around and left. De Hay glanced at the master through the camera. Then he strode forward with his short legs and followed Su Xinxing. After they left, the Grand Master suddenly said to the hamster army in the tunnel, Lubowski, we might have something to do. After leaving the sewers, Su Xinxing began to move towards the central area. As the central area of the artificial island of Ronnie Hard, the terrain in the central area was higher than the surrounding area. According to the notebook, this was a specially designed shelter structure in case of emergencies such as tsunamis. Unfortunately, it seemed that it had never been used. Interestingly, the owner of the notebook was also called Ronnie Hard, but the notebook seemed to have been recorded after he came to the island, so Zhang Heng did not know what Ronnie Hard used to do. Perhaps in this world, this person was a very famous scientist, so it was not impossible to name the artificial island after him. According to Ronnie Hard's records, the island itself was just a test island made by humans to verify the feasibility of building a stable artificial island directly from the deep seabed. Due to some reasons, it was considered a failure and the island was even planned to be abandoned. However, the problem seemed to have been solved and the island was put into use. In just a few years, it became a popular tourist destination. After that, Su Xinxing also found some records related to friends that the Grandmaster mentioned in the notebook. As Ronnie Hard became more and more prosperous, some rich people began to settle down on this scenic island. However, some people's hearts were always more dirty, dark, and full of desires. Because Ranachar did not belong to any country, most laws could not regulate the island. Although the use of highly intelligent robots like LB had reduced the crime rate to a very small number, some more serious crimes were still happening in the dark. The laboratory in the central area was ordered to carry out a special research, grafting human parts into animal chromosomes and using cloning technology to create the half-human. Because the gene body was an animal, strictly speaking, these cloned creatures could only be regarded as ordinary animals. Therefore, they did not enjoy human rights. In a sense, they were no different from slaves in the feudal era. Due to the development of science, most of the rich could no longer find a sense of superiority in ordinary people. Therefore, they planned to create these half-humans to satisfy their desires. Although there were scientists who opposed this research, they yielded to the research institute's funding and finally the research was carried out. However, due to some unknown interference, the research did not progress smoothly. Su Xinxing was not quite sure what happened in the end because when Ronnie Hard wrote about the research, he suddenly changed the topic and began to write about his relationship with the daughter of a rich man on the island. Su Xinxing almost tore the book apart. *CK, I'm here to read science fiction, but you changed it halfway to a romance story? What the hell is going on? Later on, the pages of the notebook began to be missing. It was likely that after being torn apart, the master was unable to retrieve all the pages. He only managed to retrieve the first half of the notebook and a small portion at the back. Therefore, there were many things that Su Shenxing saw later that left him confused. The easiest way to go from the park area to the central area was to walk along the road. Although there would be a very long uphill, it was much easier than the zigzagging stairs in other places. The central area of Ronnie Hard is a combination of the administrative district and the scientific research area. It is dominated by solemn buildings. If there is nothing important, I don't recommend that you continue, Mr. Su. When Dahei walked to the central area, he routinely introduced it to Su Shenxing. The administrative district and the scientific research area? I can't tell at all from his current appearance. Su Shenxing looked at the scene in front of him and frowned. Chapter 416. The wreckage of the tank was like a black corpse, standing silently on the ground. The outer shell of the plane had completely withered, leaving only a skeleton-like structure, showing the world that it once existed. The ground was full of craters caused by explosions, and many bomb fragments and duds that did not explode lay quietly in the craters. Occasionally one could see scrapped military robots similar to Dahei but equipped with weapons. It was easy to imagine the intensity of the war at that time. Even just standing here one could almost smell the smoke of gunpowder. However, Su Shenxing knew that this was just an illusion. Although he did not know what the humans of the old era were fighting with, the war had ended 12 years ago. Humans lost, and they lost terribly. The evidence was the blurred text on the last page of Ronichard's notebook, which was covered in blood. No one can stop his arrival, no one can escape. The sins of mankind will be repaid by mankind and we will all die in the end. The text looked completely different from the elegant and beautiful cursive characters in front of it. It was probably because Ronichard's hand was trembling when he wrote this sentence. Su Shenxing did not know if this trembling was due to fear, or if it was due to excessive blood loss that he could not even hold the pen properly. Wow. When Dahei saw everything in front of him, he seemed to have crashed again. The road is blocked. Is this what you care about? Su Shenxing could not help but complain. After sighing, he continued to ask, so, where is the underground research lab? Submit the agreement. Tour of the underground research lab. Agreement submission failed, insufficient authority. Dahei trembled for a long time before he finally said, Mr. Su, I can't take you to the underground research lab. Then let me put it another way. Su Shenxing raised the notebook in his hand. I'm going to return important research materials. Resubmit the agreement. Return important materials. Agreement submission successful. Mr. Su, please come with me. So easy, Su Shenxing whistled. At this moment, the sound of running footsteps suddenly came from behind him. Su Shenxing could not help but turn around. But before he could see clearly what was running towards him, he saw a white shadow flash past. Something crashed into his arms and he was sent flying by a strong force. Cough. Little Su. Didn't you say that you would wait for me? Why did you leave with Xiaohei? The bestiared girl sat on Su Shenxing's stomach and complained, Teacher didn't tell me where you guys went. I had a hard time looking for you guys. How did you know we were here? Su Shenxing asked helplessly. My nose. The girl wagged her tail proudly. Are you a dog? No, this girl was indeed a dog. Anyway, get off my stomach. I can't hold on much longer. Su Shenxing could only surrender. Of course, he was still secretly delighted in his heart. Oh. The girl excitedly jumped off and handed the paper bag in her hand to Su Shenxing. Look, little biscuits. Su Shenxing took a look. As expected, it was the kind of dog biscuits. I don't like to eat this. You can have it. Thus, he waved his hand and pretended to be very generous. Really? So happy. The girl suddenly laughed foolishly. Seeing that Su Shenxing did not follow, Dahei walked back with her short legs. But just as she got close to the bestiared girl, the little girl covered the dog biscuit in her hand and made threatening sounds at Dahei. Dahei ignored the girl as usual. After gesturing for Su Shenxing to hurry up and keep up, it walked in the direction of the underground laboratory. Su Shenxing sighed and patted the girl's head. Don't worry, I will protect you. Oh. Although the girl did not know what was going on, she still happily shook her head and said. The entrance to the underground laboratory was hidden in a pile of rubble. Sushinshing thought that this thing should have been a building, but it was destroyed by a bomb. In short, after clearing away all the stones and debris on top of it, he found the iron door under the guidance of Dahe. It was different from the thin metal door in the master's sewers. The door here was like a bank vault door, extremely thick and heavy. Requesting password, error. Resending request, error. Dahe tilted the camera at the door and seemed to be thinking for a while before saying, emergency, begin deciphering password. Estimated time to decipher 64-digit password is 3 hours. Dahe, get out of the way. Let me try. Sushinshing pulled out a wooden stick and said to Dahe, the door here is made of high-strength alloy and is 50 centimeters thick. A normal explosion would not be able to destroy it. I don't think Sushinshing's wooden stick can do it. Dahe said. While they were talking, Sushinshing had already chopped down with the stick. But just like Dahe said, the metal door did not budge. Sushinshing pulled out a second wooden stick and chopped down on the other side. This time the super alloy door fell down with a clang. It's really hard. I can't believe you used 2 of my wooden sticks. Sushinshing said with a look of surprise. Dahe, wah wah wah, don't crash in a place like this. As soon as he walked into the underground laboratory, a stale smell hit him in the face. Even after 12 years, the smell of formalin did not seem to have completely dissipated. Wait a minute. Why is there formalin in the laboratory? Sushinshing was a little surprised. What is formalin? The girl with the beast ears asked curiously. It's a preservative. Sushinshing answered concisely. Then he saw the girl licking her lips and added, you can't drink it. Oh, the girl looked very disappointed. You really want to drink it? There are also biological research projects in the underground laboratory, Dahe replied to Sushinshing, so most of the commonly used reagents are in stock. Hearing this, Sushinshing remembered the beast-eared girl manufacturing plan that he saw in the notebook. Nope, so he understood. He walked down the stairs, and the deeper he went, the darker it became. But the strange thing was that the degree of darkness was enough, but there was no spirit here. This strange phenomenon made Sushinshing even more certain that this was the place where everything had happened. As he walked, Sushinshing suddenly found a switch on the wall. So he tried to turn it on. The next moment, most of the lights in the laboratory lit up. Chapter 417. Sure enough, there was an electricity supply in this laboratory. Only then did Sushinshing realize that he had forgotten to ask the master how the electricity supply on this island came about. But Sushinshing felt that even if he really asked, the master's answer would most likely be that he didn't know. Just after taking 2 steps, Sushinshing found a piece of paper at his feet. At first he thought it was just a useless experiment report, but after picking it up he recognized it from the pattern on the edge of the paper that it was a page from the book. New calendar year 953, April 7th. The weather was a little gloomy. Thor said it was good weather. Damn it, I don't think this weather can be considered good weather at all. At most it's only slightly better than the storm. Andean was grounded by her stubborn, hateful father. I wanted to find her using the previous method, but I was discovered by her security guard. The old man laughed at me for overestimating myself. I was enraged and pounced on him. I felt like I was a lion at that time. Of course, in the end I was still beaten up by the security guard behind the old man. It couldn't be helped. That guy's arm was thicker than my waist. That damn old man forbade me to continue contacting Andean because I'm just a poor boy, a scientific worker with no money in his pocket. I need a lot of money to shut that old man up. Maybe it's time to consider the research project that Thorst and the others spurned. It's just the romance part. Sushinshing clipped the page according to the date written on it, but he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Compared to the romance part, he wanted to see some useful information more. Little Sue, what's written inside? The beast-eared girl asked curiously. Nothing, just some boring things. Sushinshing picked out some boring romance parts from the notebook to tell the girl as he continued to walk forward. Then the girl found another page on a shelf. New calendar year 953, April 22nd, heavy rain. Unbelievable, unbelievable, unbelievable. I succeeded, but I also failed. I can't imagine that the overlapping of animal and human genes would cause such a change. Their birth seems to require more and more energy than humans. Otherwise, even if this half-human is successfully cloned, it would soon wither and die because it can't support the body. They are also human. Their eyes and moans before they die make me feel uneasy. After that, I looked at their melted remains and thought for a long time. I thought that perhaps it would be better to listen to the vice director's suggestion and give up on this research society. But for Andean, I have no other choice. It seemed that this Ranachard was indeed an excellent scientist. It only took him 10 days to create a beast woman, although there seemed to be some problems. After thinking for a while, Su Xinxing touched the head of the girl who seemed to be worried about him. Then they moved on. The next room was filled with what looked like petri dishes. Almost every petri dish gave off the smell of vengeance, and there seemed to be some kind of strange black substance left in them. The beast-eared girl didn't seem to like the smell here. She covered her nose and looked a little dizzy. "Mr. Su, are you collecting these pieces of paper?" At this time, Dehe also seemed to have found a notebook page under the petri dish. May 3rd, 953 of the new calendar, should have been a beautiful sunny day. It failed. No matter what I do, it's useless. After calculation, the energy needed to successfully create a half-human is almost the power of a city for a year. Obviously, many people don't think I can succeed. After all, it's still in the experimental period. I can't guarantee a 100% success rate. The investors seem to want to withdraw their investment. Damn it, if this goes on, won't I be able to achieve nothing? There must be a way as long as we can find a special energy source. This guy already had a feeling that he had gone astray. Su Xinxing thought to himself. They continued to move forward, but as they walked, the road ahead was blocked by a landslide. "Little Su's wooden stick can open this road?" The beast-eared girl asked curiously. "It's not impossible, but it will be troublesome if it collapses." Because his strength had become very subtle, Su Xinxing didn't have the confidence to fully control his destructive power. He looked around and found a ventilation duct next to him. "Let's go there." "Mr. Su, that's an illegal route. We are in a special situation, we need to use special means. You can call the police after this, I don't mind," Su Xinxing said sanctimoniously. Perhaps it was because this facility was underground and had higher requirements for ventilation equipment. The ventilation ducts here were quite wide, and even a robot of Dahe's size could barely squeeze in. It was a bit troublesome that there would be barbed wire fences every now and then. Fortunately, the beast-eared girl's strength was enough for her to tear the fences apart. However, this required the girl to crawl in front. This made Su Xinxing, who was following behind the girl, feel like he was doing something very beastly every time he raised his head. After climbing for a while, the girl found the exit. She took the lead and jumped down through the vent. Su Xinxing followed and found that this was a place similar to an office. There was a person's name tag on the desk. It said Win Thorost. However, it seemed like a fight had happened in this office. The furnishings around were very messy on the ground, and there were many documents scattered on the ground. Then the girl sniffed the ground and found a notebook page in the pile of documents. This made Su Xinxing very curious as to why this thing would appear here. New calendar year 953, 13th of November. I didn't go outside today, I don't know what the weather is like. I was just going to play a joke on Thorost. But I accidentally heard a message outside his office door. This made me quickly confirm whether today is April Fool's Day. Yes. But it's obviously not. So the message should be true. Yes. I'm not a natural person, I'm a clone, and my DNA sample actually came from that thing underground. Unbelievable. My God, my mind is in a mess. Yes. Damn it, no wonder I always felt that there were a few places in my memory that were very strange and couldn't be reconciled. So my past was just an illusion input by the learning device? No wonder my name is the same as this island, called Ronnie Hard. Because from the beginning I was born on this island as a test subject. Can I still be considered a human being? Chapter 418. The date span on this piece of paper was huge compared to the previous one, and Ranachard's tone seemed to be more neurotic than before. The thing below. Su Xinxing was very concerned about this mentioned in this paragraph. After all, compared to how the world became the doomsday, Su Xinxing wanted to know what it was. Even across thousands of worlds, it had to summon a wisp of its consciousness to this world. But so far he hadn't found any useful information from the records, but now there seemed to be some turning point. It seemed that the goal seemed to be the lowest level of this research institute. So the group continued to move forward. This floor seemed to be dedicated to offices. The rooms on both sides of the corridor didn't have the previous experimental instruments. Almost all of them were laboratories with messy documents and some computer-like equipment. After walking for a while, Su Xinxing found an oil painting on the wall. The reason why he noticed this oil painting was that there was a bloody handprint on the oil painting. The oil painting depicted a very young woman. She was wearing an evening dress that was only worn at upper-class balls. She was sitting at a table with a fluffy puppy in her arms. There was a line of small words in the lower right corner of the oil painting. "Give my masterpiece to the beautiful deputy director of the Ranachard Institute." There was a strange signature behind it. It seemed to be the painter of this painting. Other than that, there was nothing too noteworthy about this painting. Just as Su Xinxing was about to leave, he found that the beast-eared girl was staring at the painting, or at the woman in the painting. Then a teardrop slowly slid down her usually carefree face and fell to the ground. "Girl, what's wrong with you?" Su Xinxing asked immediately. "Huh. Why am I crying? I don't know her, but why do I feel so uncomfortable in my chest?" The beast-eared girl's ears drooped and tears flowed out uncontrollably. Su Xinxing realized that the puppy in the woman's hand in the painting was a Pomeranian, and the bell on the puppy's neck was also very similar to the beast-eared girl's treasure. Therefore, Su Xinxing could only sigh and pat the girl's head to comfort her. The girl cried for a long time before she stopped. After that, she followed Su Xinxing silently. It seemed that her mind was still in a mess. Su Xinxing didn't know how to comfort her, so he could only walk forward silently. Then he picked up a new notebook page at the edge of the stairs. "New calendar year 953, July 19th. I think it's time to make a choice. If I give up on this research, I will probably have to say goodbye to Andean forever. That would drive me crazy. Therefore there is only one choice. There are no nuclear fusion facilities on this island, so there is only one powerful energy source, and that is the thing below. After all, to be able to power the entire Ranachard for so many years without any energy degradation, it means that it contains even more power. Just a little bit, and I might be able to complete my research. After the finished product appears, the investors will not continue to hesitate. With sufficient capital injection, I don't need to think about that thing anymore. Now let me think about how to get enough energy from that thing. Sure enough, the key is the thing below. And judging from this page of notes, the power supply of the entire Ranachard area was also provided by that thing, so there was no power outage so far. Was it some kind of energy source? No, if he combined it with the notebook he had obtained earlier, the possibility of it being some kind of legendary creature was higher. And he didn't know if it was an illusion. The more Su Xinxing walked down, the more he could feel that there seemed to be something calling out to him below. The floor below the office floor seemed to be a place where experimental animals were raised. At this time there was not a single animal inside. However, Su Xinxing found a new note on the way. Because of the high overlap of the routes, Su Xinxing began to wonder if these notes were dropped when the master escaped with the notes. June 30th, 953 new calendar, light rain. My research has made no progress. In fact, after experiencing so many failures, I feel that I have become a little numb. The nightmares that I have been having some time ago have long stopped. There is no doubt that I am a supervillain now. But if I can, I still don't want to hear the wailing of humanoid creatures like us. But my efforts seem to have moved the deputy director of our institute. She decided to show me some good stuff. The deputy director was very beautiful when she was young. She was my type. Unfortunately now she is, well, not old. Old woman. Still attractive? Almost, that's what I mean. Personally, I still respect her very much. After all, she did expand our small institute to its current size. Let's go. I got off topic. What I saw today really opened my eyes. Oh my God, if I write this down, I probably won't be able to show this notebook to anyone else. Top secret information. God exists. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Before this, I have always been an atheist, but what I saw today really made me. Forgive me for being a little incoherent, but this kind of worldview is really overturned. Unbelievable. I don't even know how I got back to my room. Unbelievable. The details. Well, I really shouldn't write it down. After all, I also have the obligation to keep it confidential. Since the deputy director trusts me so much, of course I have to repay her. Unbelievable. God exists. Su Xinxing frowned. Could it be that the scientific humans in this world caught a god? You must be kidding. Then was the extinction of mankind a punishment from God? Blasphemy seemed to be a serious crime in most of the worlds where there were gods. This kind of situation could be explained. But the problem was, even if there was a fallen god caught by humans, what did this have to do with Sushenxing? Why was he called to this world from thousands of worlds away? No one could answer his question. But Sushenxing didn't care anymore because no matter what, the answer to the puzzle would soon appear in front of him. Chapter 419. Sushenxing continued to descend and soon he arrived at the next floor. However, this floor looked like a fallout shelter. Although there were some items that looked like living supplies, most of the space was still empty. Along the way they occasionally saw the airlock that had fallen, but most of the airlock seemed to be used to isolate the room from the outside. It didn't affect Sushenxing and his team's progress. Therefore, although Sushenxing was curious about what was in the room, he didn't waste time opening it to take a look. "Dehei, can this thing be opened?" Sushenxing didn't ask Dehei until an airlock blocked their path. "You need an identity key or a DNA verification code to open it," Dehei replied. Sushenxing looked around. There were no ventilation windows like the previous floors, so it was impossible to sneak in through the ventilation duct. Therefore he confirmed the hardness of the wall. Unlike the collapsed floor, because this floor was a fallout shelter, the surrounding walls were made of metal. It was very hard and could probably withstand a strong impact. Therefore he pulled out a wooden stick and looked at Dehei. After a while, Dehei's eyebrow-like mask tilted, then it turned around and walked back with its short legs. "Mr. Su, I'm going to confirm the situation of the floor." After Dehei left, Sushenxing opened the airlock with 2 sticks. Judging from the cut, although the airlock was not as thick as the super alloy door at the entrance of the research institute, the multi-layer composite metal structure could still ensure its hardness and toughness. Dehei, who came back after hearing the noise, continued to move down. However, it was different from the previous floors where the stairs led to the east and the west. Although there seemed to be other floors below the shelter floor, the stairs from this floor were all connected together, forming a square spiral staircase. Standing on this floor and looking down, one could see the pitch-black bottom floor. Speaking of which, this research institute looks quite advanced, but it doesn't even have an elevator. When Sushenxing saw that he had to walk up at least a dozen stairs, he couldn't help but feel a little tired. "Why don't I just jump down from here? Anyway, even if it's just a wisp of consciousness in my dream, Yunlin can still use it. Such a height won't cause any harm to me. If it's the elevator this way." When Dehei heard this, it immediately began to lead the way. Sushenxing almost vomited blood. "Since there is an elevator, why do we have to work so hard to find the stairs?" "Because Mr. Su didn't ask any questions," Dehei replied in a serious tone. "Is this guy angry because I'm messing around here?" Sushenxing muttered in his mind. Regardless, there was an elevator was a good thing. Even without using Yunlin's perception, Sushenxing could sense that the opponent's energy field was rapidly condensing under the interference of the right hand. Finally, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Sushenxing and the others. The other party's appearance vaguely resembled Sushenxing, but he was taller and thinner. The crazy look in his narrow eyes was something that Sushenxing had never seen before. Old Su's eyes were like dead fish eyes 90% of the time. "He gives me a strange feeling." For the first time, the beast-eared girl showed a look of fear and hid behind Sushenxing. Dehei, on the other hand, stood there motionless like an ordinary robot as always, indifferent to everything in front of him. "You're that Ronachard?" Sushenxing asked, shaking the paper in his hand. "Did you deliberately show me these things?" "Yes, I've been waiting for you for the past 12 years. The other party let out a shrill laugh like a night owl. "You must want to know what happened, but don't worry, listen to me slowly." Before he could finish his words, his head was smashed by Sushenxing's stick. However, this kind of attack clearly did not have much effect. Almost in a breath, his head returned to its original state. He seemed to have not noticed Sushenxing's sneak attack at all as he narrated everything that had happened in the past. Chapter 420. Fate had played a big joke on the humans of this world. By chance, a female scientist who presided over the development of the artificial island, Ronachard, found a meteorite from the universe and found a right hand in the meteorite. After a rough study, she found that the hand contained a large amount of incomprehensible energy, but this energy had a wonderful versatility. It could be easily converted into electricity or other forms of energy that had been mastered by humans. At this time, the artificial island of Ranachard could not be developed without a suitable energy source for various reasons. So the female scientist concealed the existence of the hand and secretly placed it in the deepest part of Ranachard to provide energy for the entire artificial island. She claimed that she had mastered the practical technology of controllable nuclear fusion to a certain extent and that the one on Ranachard was just an experimental fusion furnace. In this way, the artificial island of Ranachard went from a failed project to a money-making machine. The female scientist also retreated behind the scenes and only became the deputy director of the research institute on the island. After gaining a lot of wealth and prestige, the female scientist did not stop her research on the right hand. She codenamed the right hand Hand of God and began to secretly promote the transformation of the entire research institute into biology so that she could study that Hand of God more conveniently. The hardness of that Hand of God was beyond imagination. It was as soft as a normal person's hand, but it took her nearly 10 years to barely cut a small piece of skin from the hand that could not be seen without a microscope. If this continued, she would not be able to find anything. So the female scientist finally decided to take a risk and use the immature cloning technology to clone a human sample of that Hand of God by extracting DNA from the skin. The mother of the human sample was herself. Thus, a man with the same name as the artificial island was born. After he was born, he spent a year in the culture tank to accelerate his growth, directly passing through childhood and adolescence. His memories of those two eras were all false information instilled by the learning device. Because there was no real information to refer to, the possibility of this false memory being seen through was very small. Ranachard was a genius. Since he transferred to the Research Institute as an intern, his excellence was recognized by everyone. Coupled with a more sunny personality because of the false memory, he soon became one of the top scientists in the institute. For most of the staff in the institute, Ranachard was perfect in every way except that he seemed to be prone to hair loss. But those people would never know that for some reason, after learning about the existence of the Hand of God, Ranachard quietly diverted a part of the primitive power in the right hand to create the beast woman. Although the experiment failed in the end and only one of the hundreds of experimental subjects survived, Ranachard found that his body did not seem to reject the primitive power. In addition, he also obtained the key to turning the animal into a beast woman from the only successful sample, but it was a toxic vaccine for humans. However, the beast woman's plan did not succeed. By chance, he learned the secret of his birth. Since then, not only did he stop experimenting, but he also became neurotic. He hated the deputy director who gave him life but abandoned him, hated the experimenter who instilled false memories in him, and hated everyone who knew the inside story but never told him. Therefore, he decided to escape from this artificial island with his beloved girl and wander the world. His escape plan was perfect and everyone's every move was within his expectations. But he missed one thing, and that was the thoughts of his beloved girl. After learning about Ranachard's identity as a clone, the girl changed her mind. So when Ranachard was about to succeed because of the girl's betrayal, not only did all his previous efforts go to waste, but he was also put under house arrest. After the Research Institute learned about the situation, they completely tore off their hypocritical face and made Ranachard a guinea pig. This made Ranachard almost die in the experiments several times. He relied on his hatred for the world and all human beings to survive those experiments, and quietly waited for the time to take revenge. The time was soon ripe. Ranachard successfully escaped from the laboratory where he was imprisoned by the Watcher's carelessness. But he knew very well that even if he ran back to the surface, what awaited him was only a city-wide search. After all, he was just an ordinary scientist and he was definitely no match for professionals in escape and anti-reconnaissance. So he sneaked back to his laboratory, took the vaccine and the necessary tools, and sneaked into the 15th floor of the basement, where the Hand of God was located. Then it took him less than a day to energize the vaccine, and then from all the energy channels of the Hand of God, the vaccine, which in a sense should be called a virus, was disseminated. This type of energy virus would kill humans and neutralize their thoughts, forming a strange energy field, which was also known as haunts. When the surviving police found him, he had cut off his right hand and roughly grafted the hand of God onto his own hand. He made the right bet. The power of the hand of God healed his wounds quickly, and he easily killed all the enemies who came to attack him. Then the vaccine backfired on his body through the energy channels, but also because of the protection of the hand of God, Ranachard not only did not die, but also became a semi-energized creature. Because the inferior creatures of the energy creatures were almost unconditionally obedient to the superior creatures, Ranachard, who had the hand of God, could almost command all the ghosts. In the face of this monster that was beyond common sense, the human resistance only lasted for a year before it completely collapsed. Ordinary weapons did not work on him at all. Even the lights, which were effective against mischief, had no effect on Ranachard, who had the hand of God. Not long after a year, all human beings on the planet were declared extinct. Ranachard's revenge on human beings was also completed. Chapter 421. I thought everything would end here, but in fact it's not that simple. Ranachard stared at the expressionless Su Shenxing. The right hand on the platform slowly floated to Ranachard's side. It seemed to be connected by an invisible part. The power of the hand of God is too strong. Even if I come from the same source as it, after borrowing too much of its power, it began to gradually erode my will. If this goes on, soon I will no longer be myself, but just a vassal of the hand of God. So, it's not this hand that really called me but Yuke. Hearing this, Su Shenxing showed a look of understanding. Su Shenxing had some clues as to why there was a right hand of his. In the past, when he was wandering in the other world, he had died several times. Although he was resurrected, only once was his body lost. In the end, he had to use the power of the Holy Sword to recast his body and complete his resurrection. This was also the reason why the scars on Su Shenxing's body had not disappeared even though his strength had reached such a level. He carried these scars with him when he was reforging his body. Therefore his current state with scars was his original state. Even if he recovered, he would recover according to this state. Yes, since the hand of God is yours, as long as I can devour you and replace your existence, the hand of God will naturally not continue to erode my consciousness. Su Shenxing showed an unhappy expression. If he was not in such a weak state, he would have punched Ranachard in the face. You must think I'm overestimating myself, don't you? After all, you have such a strong power with just one hand. If I really summon you, you can probably kill me with one finger, right? But unfortunately, I didn't want to fight you head-on from the beginning. Ranachard grinned, revealing a strange smile that was completely inhuman. You here are just a wisp of thought in a dream. You are too different from your real body. As long as I can eat you here, your real body in the original world will forget everything in this dream. Why are you surprised? In order to be able to do this, even I, a genius, spent an entire 12 years to successfully research it. Very good, another reason for this guy to die has been added. What are you? Is it evil? The beast-eared girl hiding behind Su Shenxing asked. Unfortunately, neither of them. The corners of Ranachard's mouth curled up and his smile became more, wilder. I am a god. God. The beast-eared girl looked confused. But I feel like I've seen you before. Of course you've seen me. Because you are the only surviving beast mother from that experiment. That original sample, the mother of the vaccine. He said in a deep voice as if he was immersed in his research at that time. You are the origin of the birth of the beast mother, the accomplice of the destruction of the human race. Your appearance changed everything. Taking you away from that old hag was the best decision I made. Seeing the look of despair on her face really made me happy. Can you please shut up for a moment? Seeing the horrified look on the beast-eared girl's face, Su Shenxing could not help but frown and said coldly to the other party. What? Do you think you still have a chance of winning? Is it the kind of swordsmanship that uses a wooden stick? Or the strange energy that wraps around your body? Ranachard continued to grin and said in a sarcastic tone, Unfortunately, all your trump cards are in my hands. Why would I know? Is that what your expression is saying? Then I'll let you rest in peace while I eat you. After that, he snapped his fingers and many translucent screens appeared around him. The pictures on the screens were somewhat similar to surveillance cameras. The position of the cameras did not seem to be high and some of them were even filmed while moving. Su Shinxing found his face on the screen. To be exact, it was his side profile. So he looked in the direction that should be filming. What he saw was naturally Dehei's camera head. Dehei looked at the screen, then looked at Su Shinxing, then looked at the screen again. After repeating this several times. Whoa, 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 the computer crashed again. Is it strange? In fact, it's not difficult to guess, is it? Since the energy source of the entire city is the hand of God, then I, who has the hand of God, naturally control all the energy and am the owner of the highest authority. It's not difficult to use the LB's camera, or rather it's as easy as pie. Ronachard stopped smiling and snapped his fingers. Do you understand now? Everything about you, your actions, are under my nose. One of your traveling companions is one of the culprits who destroyed mankind, and the other is a spy who sold your information. Even the notebook pages you saw were actually deliberately shown to you by me, just like this. A piece of paper seemed to be pulled by invisible silk threads and floated to Su Shinxing. Su Shinxing glanced at the words on it and found that it was the diary of Ronachard when he was preparing to escape from this artificial island. Although the words at this time revealed a sense of sadness, he still had hope. He seemed to regard the girl named Andean as the last hope of his soul. When the last hope of his soul betrayed him and the last pillar collapsed, Ronachard became the lunatic he was now. Is your performance over? Su Shinxing threw the piece of paper in his hand away. Now that the truth was out, there was no point in continuing to collect the pages of the notebook. If this is the extent of your trap, then I advise you to stop showing off. I've encountered a lot of people who made things difficult for me even at my peak. Things like yours, other than making me angry and bored, have no other effect. Su Shinxing's words made the expression on Ronachard's face stiffen. Obviously, his indifference made Ronachard waver a little. Is that so? Although I don't know where your confidence comes from, it seems that to completely shatter your confidence, words alone can't do it. But soon Ronachard, who had regained his confidence, took a stance. The light clusters around him became more and more, and the energy field seemed to be substantial as it rushed towards Su Shinxing. In that case, we can only use force. Chapter 422. In the evening, the sky had gradually darkened. The ground in the central area of the artificial island rose high, and with a cracking sound, the ground was completely broken. Cement and asphalt fragments splattered everywhere, and even the wreckage of the tanks were blown away. A large amount of jelly-like translucent material spewed out from the ground. Then, with a dull thud, Su Shinxing and the others fell heavily on another piece of ground that was still intact. If Su Shinxing had not seen the situation and opened up the cloud scale in time, they would have been swallowed the moment Ronachard's translucent body suddenly soared underground. Run! Shielding the beast-eared girl and Dehei, who were still a little dizzy, behind him, Su Shinxing stared at the huge jelly monster with a solemn expression. If he used the holy sword of the end, Rolander, at this time he would probably be able to finish off his opponent in an instant. But the previous problem had not been solved. In this state he could not precisely control the destructive power of Rolander. At least, if he was not careful and used a little too much force, then even if the world was fine, this planet would definitely be destroyed. With that thought in mind, it was better to use the holy sword as the last resort. Since most of the power of this thing in front of him came from the right hand of his lost corpse, then as long as he destroyed the right hand or took it away, the opponent would not be a problem. If that was the case, he still had the power to fight with sword mastery. So Su Shinxing pulled out the wooden stick behind him and confronted the enemy. The jelly monster did not disconnect while Su Shinxing was thinking. Almost at the next moment when Su Shinxing made his decision, the ground under his feet cracked again, and a jelly-like thing between energy and matter wrapped around Su Shinxing. Su Shinxing held the stick in his hand and swung it fiercely, destroying all the jelly. But this kind of damage did not hurt Ronachard at all. Ronachard once again destroyed Su Shinxing's foothold and attacked him continuously. However, because the attack frequency was not high, Su Shinxing did not feel tired of dealing with it now. If Ronachard's attack was only at this level, Su Shinxing felt that he could even hold on for a long time. However, just as he thought so, his hand was empty and he could not touch the stick behind him. Suddenly, Su Shinxing realized that something was wrong. Although his physical and mental strength could hold on, the number of sticks was limited. Without the stick, Su Shinxing's combat strength would be greatly reduced. At the moment he hesitated, he was wrapped in the jelly-like thing. He pushed open the cloud scale and tried his best to resist the other party's devouring. However, a familiar power seeped into the cloud scale and affected his body. That was the power of the hero. Although it was not particularly powerful in the power system that Su Xinxing had once grasped, to the point that he had almost eliminated the use of that power, the advantage of that power was that it could be drawn purely from the physical body. Furthermore, it was highly versatile and could be used in almost every world. Because the source of this power was Su Xinxing's body, the cloud scale was not able to react for a while, which made Su Xinxing feel as if he had been punched by himself. Coughed. Coughing out a mouthful of blood, Su Xinxing estimated that his ribs might have been broken. He had not suffered such damage for a long time. It seemed that there was no need to continue holding back. Just as he let go of his mind and summoned the holy sword of the end, the jelly monster spat him out. "What did you just do?" Ranachard's voice was full of shock. Su Xinxing, who was falling because he was spat out in midair, naturally had no intention of answering him. However, it seemed that because the other party had a piece of his corpse in his body, he was very sensitive to the power of the holy sword, so he was detected before he could summon the holy sword. However, after Su Xinxing came to this world, he had never used the holy sword from beginning to end. Therefore, no matter what, the other party would not have thought that even if it was a wisp of consciousness, Su Xinxing could still make a devastating attack. Just when Su Xinxing was still unable to adjust his posture to use the holy sword because he had nowhere to borrow strength from in the air, he felt a soft touch from behind. Then, as if he was being hugged by someone, his falling speed suddenly slowed down. "Yo, you seem to have been beaten up badly, King Kong?" Because they had only been separated for a day, Su Xinxing immediately recognized the other party's voice. The parrot girl easily avoided the jelly monster's pursuit and said triumphantly, "Yes, yes, it's me. And it's not just me, everyone is here." As she spoke, she flapped her wings and distanced herself from Rani Hadra. Sure enough, Su Xinxing saw the beasts gathering at the edge of the central area. The Pomeranian girl and De Hay, who had just escaped, were also here. However, De Hay tied a rag to his camera and was now knocking against the wall like a robot sweeping the floor. "We found the treasure." As soon as Su Xinxing and King Kong landed, Golden Bear and Bratter carried a very heavy-looking sword to Su Xinxing. Our protagonist took it and looked at it. No matter how he looked at it, it looked like something he found on a movie set. It was engraved with the words, XX Alloy Steel Special Sample, and behind it was a rather high-end name of a steel factory. Although there was no difference between this thing and a tree branch, Su Xinxing felt that this sword might be able to withstand his sword mastery a few times. Sword mastery was a kind of willpower, and a weapon entrusted with someone else's willpower was actually the best medium to exert the power of sword mastery. Lu Heng and I set up a few searchlights not far away. Well, we had to ask our teacher how to connect the wires. She raised her little face and said, "Humph, don't look at me like that. I'm just protecting my territory from the invasion of that disgusting monster. Don't misunderstand." Lu Heng waved to Su Xinxing and King Kong from the searchlight array. "King Kong will help you. Please come back safely." Then the hamster army carried Master Oogway over like a palanquin. "I've asked Xiao Bai and the others to gather all our friends in Ranachard." She looked at Su Xinxing. "Other than the ones you know, many other friends are gathering from other directions and trying to distract the monster. We'll use the searchlights later. Although it won't destroy the monster, it can at least weaken its regenerative ability and mobility to a certain extent. I'll leave the rest to you. Although it's very irresponsible to entrust the fate of our hometown to others, we were once just pets. It's okay to rely on humans, right?" She smiled slyly and then looked serious. "Our hometown, the future of our friends, I'll leave it to you." Su Xinxing nodded and was about to turn around and fight the monster again when the Pomeranian girl hugged him. "You're a friend who can create miracles. I've always thought so." Then the girl let go of him, leaving only a little warmth. She stared at Su Xinxing and then showed the brightest smile in the dusk. "Little Su is the best." "Well, that's for sure." Su Xinxing gave her a thumbs up and then walked slowly towards Ranachard. King Kong once again took him into the air and looked down at Ranachard's jelly monster from above. But after a long time the searchlight array did not respond. Then Su Xinxing remembered something. All the electricity on the artificial island was provided by the right hand. So now that Ranachard had taken away the right hand, Would there still be electricity on the island? The answer was obviously no. There's no other way. If this continues, there will be casualties in the beast lady who baited the enemy. King Kong, just throw me down. Su Shinshin sighed helplessly. The situation during a battle was ever-changing and accidents had happened before. Although he felt it was a pity, he had originally planned to fight the enemy head-on, so as long as he adjusted his mentality he would not lose anything. However, at this moment hundreds of searchlights lit up one after another. Su Shinshin looked over in surprise, only to find that many big black robots had appeared around the beast lady. They all connected the wires of the searchlights to their batteries and used their remaining power to power the searchlights. The first to bear the brunt was De Hei, who still had a rag tied to the camera. What an incredible sight! Even King Kong exclaimed behind Su Shinshin. At this time Ranachard also noticed Su Shinshin and the others flying in the sky. Although his mobility was weakened by the searchlights, he still stubbornly surged into the sky. In the end he turned into a huge hand and grabbed at Su Shinshin and the others. But this attack also allowed Su Shinshin to see the position of the right hand. So he broke free from King Kong's claws and launched a suicidal attack on the giant hand. As if realizing what Su Shinshin wanted to do, Ranachard's upper body flowed and formed in the palm of the giant hand, and the right hand was also on his right wrist. He used the right hand to pull out a gorgeous and mighty long sword from the surrounding fluid, waiting quietly for Su Shinshin's final blow. The moment before the two were about to collide, their willpower and strength had reached the peak. In martial arts terms, their spirit had reached the peak. So both of them swung the strongest sword they could at each other. Sword of my realm. Save the world by killing. Rebel against the unparalleled father. Unfortunately, there was no fighting scene that was common in anime. Almost in the blink of an eye, Su Shinshin's sword directly cut the jelly sword and the right hand into two halves. Not only that, the effective sword of mastery allowed Su Shinshin to neatly split the giant hand from top to bottom into two. Standing in the middle of the giant hand that was split, Su Shinshin breathed a sigh of relief. Because he was only a strand of consciousness, he was a little tired from using such a serious sword. In addition, when he used the sword seriously just now, he habitually shouted the name of the sword that he used to call out. He used to be ashamed of this dark history, but now he could not help but do it. As expected, he still had the heart of a Chunibu. No, it must be because he was still in a dream, so he would do some strange things. Su Shinshin excused himself in his heart. However, it was not over. The jelly monster did not disappear. Instead, it collapsed into many small light orbs and floated into the sky. Then all the spirits in the entire artificial island and even the entire world gathered together, forming a gorgeous star vortex like the Milky Way. And at the center of the star vortex was a terrifying giant eye. You must be kidding. Su Shinshin's face did not look too good. Even without Yunlin's confirmation, he could barely sense that the enemy was definitely a cosmic system state. It seemed that Ranachard's consciousness was completely defeated and was taken over by the spirit. And through the complete absorption of the right hand, it caused a mutation. If he wanted to defeat it now, the only way was to use the Holy Sword of the End. But the problem was that once he used the Holy Sword of the End, this world might be destroyed by him instead. It's okay. I'm not that me anymore. As long as I suppress my power. Su Shinshin took a deep breath, forced himself not to let his imagination run wild, and then summoned the Holy Sword of the End. Holding the hilt that he was so used to, he could not help but think of what happened when he first obtained the Holy Sword of the End. The world that the Demon King spent hundreds of years but could not destroy was completely destroyed in just 3 seconds after Su Shinshin fused the 12 Holy Swords. Everything in that world disappeared as a result. The only one who survived was Su Shinshin himself. Su Shinshin shook his head and through the thought of, if I failed this time, what would happen to the Pomeranians and the others? Out of his mind. He swung the Holy Sword at the enemy in the sky. The brilliance of the Holy Sword split the sky, and space was also distorted because of its power. Spiderweb-like space cracks spread throughout the entire world, and the flow of ether slowly flowed into this world. But it was too shallow. Admittedly, under this sword, the collective body of the spirit was greatly damaged. But because Su Shinshin overly suppressed the power of the Holy Sword, this blow did not kill the enemy. On the contrary, because the spirit was heavily injured, it began to use its power recklessly. The surrounding beasts were sucked up by its power as if they were being pulled by an invisible force, and they all floated up one after another. It seemed that it wanted to eat the beasts to replenish its lost power. Su Shenxing wanted to stop it, but there was no way to stop it. The world had become more unstable because of his sword just now. If the difficulty coefficient of killing the enemy without destroying the world was 10, then now it had soared to at least 1000. Don't give up. The Pomeranian girl who was holding Dehei and was not sucked up shouted. Because Xiao Su can create miracles. He's my favorite friend. So don't give up. I believe in you. The golden bear's body was already suspended in the air, but Bratter, who was holding the telephone pole, held her hand so she was not sucked away. That's right. You can even defeat that big guy just now. Now as long as you work harder you can definitely do it. Bratter squinted and shouted at Su Shenxing as much as he could. Don't show such a useless expression. I'm still waiting for you to come and show you the more interesting parts of the commercial district. Dragonly said loudly as she tried to hold on to the signboard by the roadside to prevent herself from being sucked away. It's Mr. Su. Our safety is in your hands. Lu Heng and King Kong hugged each other. King Kong flapped his wings to resist the suction from the sky. The hamster army and Master Hamster did not react in time and were slowly sucked up. Unlike the panicked hamster army, Master Hamster looked very calm. Don't be afraid. Our world isn't as fragile as you think. Please believe in her and believe in yourself. The suction force increased and the remaining beasts were sucked into the sky. At this moment Su Shenxing finally made his decision. He looked at the star cluster in the sky, Ghost, and took a deep breath. Then he frowned and roared loudly. Give me back my friends, you ugly bastard. The brilliance of the holy sword exploded again, but compared to the previous flash this time, it soared into the sky like a beam of light. This time the power was restrained in the beam of light, and it pierced into the eyeball of the ghost, which was larger than the entire artificial island. In the next instant the ghost exploded. This time it did not turn into a ball of light. Instead it completely disappeared from the world. The remaining power of the holy sword was directed by Su Shenxing to the star ring. The star ring seemed to have been ignited and had its own brilliance. Although it was not as bright as the sun, its brilliance was gentler and quieter. From then on, the night of the planet had its own light. Although they fell from the sky and were half dead, most of the beast ladies had sturdy skin. At least they were much sturdier than humans. Therefore they didn't suffer any serious injuries and only suffered some superficial wounds. You're so fierce, the beast-eared girl pounced on Su Shenxing. But this time what greeted her was not the warm embrace of the past. She passed through Su Shenxing's body. Light spots like fireflies slowly flew out from Su Shenxing's body. He knew very well that because he used the holy sword he was about to wake up from the dream. Little Su? I'm sorry, girl. After Su Shenxing recalled the holy sword, he showed an apologetic expression to the Pomeranian girl. I'm leaving. How? The girl looked as if she could not believe it. She stared at Su Shenxing blankly. Don't be like this, Pomeranian. Master Turtle patted the girl's head. He doesn't belong to this world. Now that his mission is complete, he will naturally return to his hometown. If you do this, how can he go home with peace of mind? Is that so? The Pomeranian girl stared at Su Shenxing for a few seconds, and then squeezed out a smile. Must have fun. Okay. Su Shenxing could only remain silent. Where's our treasure? Golden Silk Bear and Bratter ran over and asked Su Shenxing. It's in that pile of ruins. If you look carefully you might be able to find it. Su Shenxing spread out his hands, indicating that there was nothing he could do. I didn't expect that in the end. I still couldn't let you see the most interesting thing in our business district. Forget it, I'm not looking forward to it anyway. Dragonly ran over and then turned her face away, not letting Su Shenxing see her sad expression. She said something that did not match her heart. Ooh, Mr. Su, are you leaving so soon? I haven't been able to thank you properly yet. Lu Heng looked a little sad. Thank you for the flight. I'll have a good time with Lu Heng. King Kong looked more open-minded. I wish you happiness too. Su Shenxing looked at his body that was gradually becoming translucent, and showed a bitter smile. Then I'm about to, no. But before he could finish he was interrupted by the Pomeranian. The girl lowered her head and shouted like a child who was throwing a tantrum. Well, I don't want to be separated from Xiao Xiao Su like this. There are so many things that I haven't told you, so many places that I want to go together, so many things that I want to do together. I don't want to be separated from you like this. She threw herself at Su Xinxing again, but still passed through Su Xinxing's body and fell to the ground. Even the bell that she treasured fell from her necklace. Su Xinxing walked over to her and patted the girl's head. Of course he couldn't touch her, so it was just an action. Then he bent down and picked up the bell. Don't worry, I definitely won't forget the things that happen with you guys. As long as I remember, we'll definitely meet again. After saying that, he completely disappeared. Earth, Sakura Apartments. Su Xinxing opened his eyes and yawned. Then he saw Emily sitting by his bed playing with a handheld game that he got from God knows where. How long have I been asleep? Su Xinxing moved his head and asked curiously. One night. Emily raised his head and asked Su Xinxing, what's wrong? Nothing, I just feel like I had a long dream. Su Xinxing frowned in confusion, but then he gave up. Forget it, if you can't remember, then it shouldn't be anything important. Landlord, I'm hungry. Okay, I'll go make dinner. The song you not hear? I remember that she's been making breakfast recently. She covered her face and ran away. What the hell did you do? Just like that, Su Xinxing walked out of the room with a depressed expression. Emily closed the handheld game and ran to the door. But before he went out, he glanced at Su Xinxing's unmade bed. A small little bell was lying there quietly. I'm going to wait here for little Su to come back. But the girl was unmoved. He might not come back. Even if he comes back, it might be a long time later. Seeing this, Mr. Tortoise could only shatter the girl's fantasy and show her the cruel reality. No way. The bee-steered girl shook her head stubbornly. Xiao Xiao Su is the best. Friends who could create miracles. I believe he will come back because we have already made an appointment. As she spoke, the excited girl wanted to stand up. However, due to her low blood sugar because she had not eaten for many days, the moment she stood up abruptly, her vision turned black, and her whole body fell uncontrollably from the top of the building. Just when she thought she was going to fall to the hard concrete ground, a familiar and warm embrace caught her. Sorry, I'm a little late. Su Xinxing smiled slightly and looked at the bee-steered girl in his arms. After a moment of sluggishness, the girl let out a cheer and went straight into Su Xinxing's arms. Behind Su Xinxing, a cross-shaped space crack stood abruptly, and behind the crack, a short and simple apartment could be vaguely seen. A little girl much shorter than the Pomeranian girl tried to cross the space crack, but her short legs tripped because she couldn't cross the edge of the crack and she fell face first to the ground. After a while, the little girl with two ponytails raised her face, covered her red nose and said in a muffled voice, I'm angry, I want to destroy this world. Don't make trouble, I'll make you a burger when we get home. There must be a heart-shaped poached egg on it. The girl and Su Xinxing bargained. Got it. Su Xinxing could only agree to this unequal treaty at this time, and secretly planned to make her a scarlet-shaped poached egg later. You actually came back. Mr. Tortoise also stared at Su Xinxing in surprise. Originally, he really thought that Su Xinxing's words when he disappeared were just empty words. When I left, I attached a permanent indestructible protection to this girl, which can barely be used as a coordinate to recognize the way. After that, it took a lot of effort to flatten the timeline of the two worlds. As he spoke, Su Xinxing took out the bell from his pocket. And it's all thanks to this thing. Otherwise, I might have really forgotten about this world. Ah, my treasure. The Pomeranian girl stared at the bell with her eyes wide open. Yes, I'll give it back to you now. Su Xinxing handed the bell to the girl, but the girl shook her head and refused. I'll leave it with you, little Su. She wagged her tail happily and said, because I will always remember Lil Su, but Lil Su might not remember me. When you see this, you will remember me, so I'll leave it with you, Lil Su. Okay, since you said so. Su Xinxing didn't refuse and put the bell back in his pocket. Little Su? Emily stared at Su Xinxing with cute half-moon eyes. Ahem, I'll explain to you when we get back. Su Xinxing awkwardly turned his head away. Probably because she had enjoyed Su Xinxing's embrace enough, the bee-steered girl struggled out of Su Xinxing's arms and ran to Emily's side. What kind of friend are you? I'm a demon king. Although I don't know what you are, I feel so fierce, landlord. I like this kid. After being complimented, Emily patted the beast-eared girl who was half a head taller than her and said with approval. Putting aside the two little guys who were having a wonderful conversation, Su Shenxing greeted the turtle teacher. Can the power supply equipment below still be used? Because the battle is basically fought above, the equipment at the bottom is still intact, but without power, even if there is equipment, it can't be used. As for that, leave it to me. Su Shenxing looked confident. Actually, you don't have to do so much. Just take the Pomeranian away and treat her well. The turtle teacher shook his head and said, Lonacard is our hometown, but it's not yours. As a guest, you don't have to do this. The whole Lonacard is built on the arm of my past body. In a sense, I'm the cornerstone of this artificial island. No matter what, I can't be regarded as a guest and turn a blind eye to the problems on the island now, right? Su Shenxing hurriedly explained, and you seem to have misunderstood something. I don't intend to cut off an arm to power you guys. And this time was different from the past. Now Su Shenxing came here with his original body. If he really cut off an arm, the power that leaked out would be enough to blow up the Milky Way in this world. As he spoke, Su Shenxing took out a cup from nowhere. If there was someone who was good at enchantment, they would probably be able to vaguely perceive that the cup also had an indestructible ward similar to the one on the Pomeranian girl. Then he summoned the holy sword and made a small cut on his finger, squeezing out a drop of blood. It's done. Next, take this down and install it on the platform where the arm was placed before as a power supply. Su Shenxing handed the cup to the monster. According to the proportion of energy, this drop is enough to replace half of the arm, and this was only considered from the perspective of biological energy. If the Beast Lady was a super civilization that could explore the level of the space wall, she might be able to refine or remove more advanced special energy through this drop of blood. If that's the case, thank you very much. After getting used to living with electricity, the feeling of going back to the days before liberation was really terrible. Chapter 424. Chu Nuangxia was a casual gamer. Although she had bought a home console to keep up with the trend, she still loved to play online games on PC. For example, the MMORPG White Ember that had recently appeared. In fact, compared to standalone games, MMORPG was not as good as standalone games. However, the social interaction and interaction with other players was something that standalone games could not achieve. Therefore, even though the new expansion pack for White Embers had yet to be released, and the high-end players had almost explored the entire game's Easter eggs and plot, causing the entire game to be nicknamed White Chat Room by the players, there were still many people who would go online and go offline on time, just to play dungeons with their friends and boast about everything for a few hours while farming equipment. Chu Nuangxia was one of them, although she did not have time to log in every day. The guild she was in now was called the Black Dove Alliance. Almost all of them were casual players. Rather than rushing to progress, the players seemed to prefer chatting together. This made Chu Nuangxia feel like she was watching a QQ chat group every time she opened the guild channel. Moreover, when they were recruiting, the members seemed to live around Jiangjin or Jiangjin. The guild leader said that it would be more convenient for them to meet in the future. Therefore, there were not many objections to this rule. However, even though she knew that browsing the guild channel was a waste of time, she often did it tirelessly. She had nothing to do, she just wanted to see what the group of idiots in the guild were talking about. On this day, she logged into the game as usual. It was rare for her to have a holiday. Dog with a nuclear bomb is online. Undying Tree. Nuclear bomb dog is good. Angel who wants to beat up Duke. So, do any of you know where the guild leader went? Dog with a nuclear bomb. What happened to the guild leader? Mo. Missing. Dog with a nuclear bomb. Master Emoli is online at this time. Mo. The landlord is training the dog. Sister control nest. Mo. Not free. Undying Tree. The guild leader is a big idiot. Big idiot. Undying Tree. I wasn't muted or kicked. It seems like the guild leader is really not online. Tea leaves goo goo goo. Angel, did you change your avatar again? Didn't you want to F***ck foo before? Angel who wants to beat up Earl. That account has been banned by the guild leader, so I'm looking for him. Cursed Eagle. 2 days ago the president said that he got a fun game. It's probably still single player now. Angel who wants to beat up Earl. F***ck, what about my main account? Undying King Shu, I'm screwed. It's not a big deal to change a new account. Look at how many aliases I have. While Chunuangxia was still watching the group of people go off topic, the doorbell rang. Who is it? Chunuangxia curiously shouted at the door. Your express delivery. The person outside shouted in a muffled voice. I'm also checking the water meter. The girl muttered to herself as she walked to the door. She looked through the peephole and realized that it really was the delivery boy. I don't seem to have bought anything recently. With this question in mind, the girl opened the door. The man handed her a small box and asked her to sign for it before leaving. Chunuangxia looked at the box and realized that it looked like a mobile phone case, but it was much lighter. The recipient of the express delivery was her online username, Nuclear Dog. This surprised her. Could it be a friend from the game? But she didn't seem to have told anyone her address. She opened the box and saw that there was only a black USB flash drive and a piece of letter. The girl picked up the letter and read it carefully. She realized that it was sent by the guild leader of the Black Dove Alliance. The general idea was that he found a fun game, so he sent a copy to every guild member. Out of curiosity, Chunuangxia asked about it in the guild channel. After a while, everyone replied that they had received the same USB flash drive. Since that was the case, it shouldn't be a prank. Thus, the girl couldn't wait to plug in the USB flash drive and open the game program. The computer read for a while before the game was officially opened. This made the girl feel a little strange. Although opening the game directly from the USB flash drive would cause some lag, wasn't this a little too much? This computer of his was capable of running the highest quality special effects even with Kazi's Blind Draw 6. The game was simple. It was a survival game similar to Don't Starve. The theme was to see how long the player could survive in the game. However, the graphics were rougher and the gameplay was more interesting. However, those who had played this type of game would know that it was easy in the early stages, but difficult in the later stages. Since she didn't need the full screen, Chunuangxia opened a small window. While playing, she didn't forget to pay attention to the feedback of the other members in the guild channel. After about 10 minutes, a guild member said that his character had died. The cause of death was that he was bitten to death by a wolf. Then the member said that he couldn't restart the game after game_over. Every time he entered the game, he would see his survival time in the game. It was about 10 minutes per day in the game. Even if he removed the USB flash drive and restarted the game, it was useless. Then more and more guild members reported the same situation. Finally, Chunuangxia felt that something was wrong. Thus, she decided to close the game. However, when she placed the mouse on the close button, no matter how hard she pressed, there was no response. Thus, she decided to close the game. Mission Manager invalid. Ctrl+W invalid. Alt+F invalid. Chunuangxia was a little panicked. She simply unplugged the power source of the computer. However, a strange scene appeared. Even though the computer screen had darkened, the game window remained on the screen. And because the computer power had been cut off, the mouse and keyboard had lost their function. The girl could no longer control the character on the screen. In the end, she could only watch as the character was smashed to death by the stones rolled up by the tornado. It wasn't until the character died that the window slowly darkened. What the hell was going on? Chunuangxia felt that her brain was a little short. The girl wasn't the smart type, so she was treated as a mascot in the guild because of her stupidity. Now that she encountered such a situation, she was naturally at a loss. After a while, she carefully turned on the computer again and found that the desktop and various software were normal. So, after hesitating for a while, she opened the game program in the USB flash drive again. The result was just as the other members said. After opening the USB flash drive, the game didn't restart. Instead, there was only a black background screen and a sentence. Time of death, 3 days, 1 hour, 23 minutes. Chapter 425. Time of death, 2 days 5 hours 11 minutes. Emily looked at the words on the screen and couldn't help but frown. A wisp of strange black fog that ordinary people couldn't see drifted out of the screen. It constantly changed shape in midair, turning into a skeleton, a poisonous snake, and a yellow dog. Finally, it tried to wrap itself around the girl. However, it was blown away by the girl's sneeze. It seemed to be a very weak curse. Molly sniffed. The image on the screen in front of her had changed back to the image of the previous game because the curse had been broken. Su Shenxing's voice came from the living room not far away. You can't eat on the street. You have to pay. Hey, do you understand? This isn't Ronnie Hart, so the rules there can't be brought here. Shake hands, lie down, roll over. Jump up and throw a flying kick at the asshole cop in front of me who's adding to my workload. The girl thought for a moment and stood up from the computer. She ran to the living room as Xiao Jingyi screamed, "Are you training your pet?" The girl with the animal ears who KO'd Xiao Jingyi with one kick saw Emily and happily pounced on Emily. For some reason the Pomeranian seemed to like Emily very much. She often pounced on Emily and licked her face. However, Emily didn't like this method of intimacy. Therefore, every time the dog girl pounced on her, she would quickly use her head to knock her down. Although the Pomeranian girl was very strong, she was obviously far from Emily's strength, not to mention the hardness of her skull. Therefore, after a bang, the girl with the animal ears fell to the ground with circles under her eyes. At this time, Xiao Jingyi also covered his cheeks and recovered. Your family's composition has become more complicated. He looked at the Pomeranian girl on the ground with a sad expression, then glanced at the kitchen. De Hei, who had recovered after charging, seemed to be learning cooking from Song Yu. However, judging from Song Yu's sad cries, it was probably not going well. Why don't we go out for lunch? Su Shenxing swallowed his saliva and decided to make a safer choice. By the way, what are you doing here? Are you freeloading? Xiao Jingyi was speechless. After gritting his teeth for a while, he finally felt that he couldn't beat Su Shenxing. No, when he didn't use the Yuanrong sword, he might not even be able to beat Su Shenxing's dog. Thus, he gave up on the idea of using force to persuade him and started from the beginning with what he had just said. A few days ago, some people died in Jiangjin. Murder? Is the murderer a monster or a creature with supernatural powers? Su Shenxing speculated, following his train of thought. No, according to the information we have, they either committed suicide or died in an accident. Su Shenxing showed an expression that said, "How dare you make fun of me?" Ahem, after feeling Su Shenxing's murderous intent, Xiao Jingyi quickly coughed a few times. He didn't forget to keep Su Shenxing in suspense while talking about the main topic. If that's the case, of course I wouldn't come to you. But something very strange happened yesterday. Su Shenxing expressionlessly made a look that said, "Start your performance." Emily sat on the side and ate oranges. The beast-eared girl was still unconscious. For a moment, only the sound of Emily eating oranges could be heard in the room. The scene was a bit awkward. Xiao Jingyi coughed again and forced himself to continue. A person came to the police station and said that he would die around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He hoped that the police could protect him. Although the police thought that this guy was just being unreasonable because of his tough attitude, they couldn't throw him out. In the end, they could only deal with him coldly. At that time, I happened to have something to do at the police station, so I was there. That guy seemed to be a little uneasy, even the slightest noise would scare him. Colleagues at the police station were investigating his identity based on the information he provided. Just like that, it was soon around 3 o'clock. At that time, he seemed to be a little nervous, so he took a sip of tea. As a result, the teacup suddenly exploded, and a few pieces of broken glass directly cut his throat at an incredible angle. The police reacted and sent him to the hospital for emergency treatment. As a result, when he was sent to the hospital, he was already dead. It is said that in addition to his throat being cut, he also swallowed several pieces of broken glass, which directly caused a lot of bleeding in his lungs. Just like that, he drowned in his own blood. At this point, Xiao Jingyi still had a look of sadness. It's really too scary. It feels like I'm watching Final Destination. The cups that the police station uses for guests to drink tea are not disposable plastic cups, but glass cups? Su Shenxing asked curiously. Usually, it's a disposable paper cup, but yesterday we just finished it and didn't have any more, so we used a glass cup to make a cup of tea for him. Xiao Jingyi also had a look of disbelief. This kind of coincidence is really scary. Of course, what's even scarier is that the guy came to our door to ask for compensation. Su Shenxing didn't comment on this. Under normal circumstances, it would definitely be treated as an accidental death, but the guy already knew that he would die at that time, which is very strange. In short, because of the strangeness of this incident, the police station still let the super administrative office get involved. I thought that you might know something similar, so I came to ask you. Xiao Jingyi finally revealed his purpose. Purely manipulating coincidences to achieve a goal is close to the level of influencing the law of causality. Although it's not impossible in a low magic world like Earth, it's hard to imagine the existence of such a level of power. Su Shenxing answered casually. Thus, the police officer stared at him helplessly with a look that said, "Are you serious? Don't lie to me, I don't know much. Why do I feel like there's a person of this level in front of me? Don't mess around." Su Shenxing naturally noticed the look in his eyes, so he very straightforwardly protested, "I'm special, okay, and I don't know any magic. If there was a problem, physics could solve it." The two big men stared at each other like this, exuding a gay atmosphere. Woof. The little girl with the animal ears woke up and interrupted their confrontation. She looked a little dizzy and her glabella was red because of Mo Li's headbutt. What just happened? Nothing happened. Su Shenxing waved his hand. Let's eat first, we'll talk after eating. It would be strange if I didn't feel cold when the wind blows. After saying that, she pulled the Pomeranian girl's ear and walked towards the bathroom. Go and take a good bath to warm up your body. It'll be troublesome if you catch a cold. It hurts, it hurts. My ears are going to fall off. Accompanied by a pitiful cry, the bestiared girl was dragged to the bathroom by Song Yu, who had a pressuring smile on her face. On the other hand, little Chiketsu seemed to be frightened by Song Yu's actions. He had a surprised expression on his face as he whispered, "Wah wah." It made Su Shenxing feel as if he was looking at Dehei who had crashed. In short, Sakura Apartment's daily life was put aside for now. Su Shenxing quickly sat in Xiao Jingyi's car and arrived at the police station. This time only Mo Li was with him. Qin Xingyan had already stopped cultivating late at night. It was just that recently the Bailu Temple branch near Jiangjin seemed to have some trouble that required her help, so she was nowhere to be seen. From the fact that she hadn't asked Su Shenxing for help, it shouldn't be something that couldn't be solved. Thus, Su Shenxing wasn't too worried. After releasing the spirit ghosts and letting them investigate the surroundings to see if there were any clues, Su Shenxing followed Xiao Jingyi into the police station. Because the murder case had just happened yesterday, the cleanup hadn't been completed yet. The area where the victim had fallen had been isolated with yellow lines and hadn't been put back into use. It's here. Xiao Jingyi was probably worried about the policemen who were still working around them. They were looking curiously at Su Shenxing, who was obviously a normal citizen. He whispered, "I used the station's equipment to check, but it didn't detect any of the common supernatural powers. It's a curse." However, Su Shenxing saw the strange black smoke that hadn't completely disappeared from the yellow lines and blurted out, "And it's the more troublesome kind." Just as Xiao Jingyi was about to ask for more details, there was some noise outside the door. Then a man with a big belly, who judging from his uniform was probably the police station's superintendent, slowly walked in with an old Taoist priest who looked like an immortal. When Su Shenxing saw them, he was immediately amused. Wasn't that old man the one who had worked next to him when he was short of money and had to set up a stall in front of Jinghua Temple to ward off evil spirits? Logically speaking, he had a good impression of this old man. After all, he had taught him that he couldn't wear flip-flops when he was a fraud. At the very least, he had to wear sandals. The old man seemed to have recognized Su Shenxing. It was probably because Su Shenxing had left a deep impression on him. After all, he was the only one who dressed up as a rural migrant worker and wanted to be a fraud. Chapter 427. Chu Nuangxia felt a little flustered. After receiving the game yesterday, she hadn't stopped feeling this way. Originally, she planned to find the guild president through the address in the package and ask him about the situation in the game. If it was just a prank, then so be it. No, she hoped it was just a prank. Otherwise, with this feeling, she went to the president's house, but she couldn't find him. According to the president's neighbor, the president left in a hurry yesterday and no one knew where he went. Chu Nuangxia, who felt that something was wrong, immediately used her connections and finally found out where the president went. Yesterday the president ran to the police station to seek asylum, but in the end he died in an accident. Because the accident was too unbelievable, it was temporarily covered up by the officials. However, in this era of the internet, it wouldn't be long before it was exposed to the public. When that time came, it would be a huge blow to the credibility of the police. Of course, this had nothing to do with Chunuangxia. The ominous feeling in her heart became more obvious. She was afraid that the president also knew that the last message of the game was a real death message in the true sense, so he ran to seek asylum. However, even if he hid in the police station, he still couldn't escape death. Come to think of it, which god of death or demon would be afraid of the police? Although the girl also told her father about this matter, he obviously didn't take her words to heart because he was in a hurry to go to work. He just thought that the girl was talking nonsense to get his attention. There's no other way. The police were unreliable and her father didn't believe her. The only thing she could do now was to find those who had the same fate as her. Since they were grasshoppers in the same boat, she believed that they would find a way to solve the problem. Wasn't there an old saying that 3 cobblers could gang up on one zhuge liang? Therefore, the girl logged into her White Ashes game account without saying a word. She told the other members of the guild what she knew, her speculation, and her idea of forming a team to get through this difficult situation. Unfortunately, the other members of the guild thought that she was just joking. Especially the guy called King Shu. He said that the theme was quite interesting and he wanted to dig a hole for him to write a novel so that he could harm more people. Alright, even if it was the girl herself, if she hadn't encountered this kind of thing in real life, when she saw this kind of thing on the internet, her first reaction would probably be to treat it as something unimportant like a ghost story. After many failed attempts to explain, the girl could only give up on the idea of relying on others. That's not right. Speaking of which, there's another person. Chunuangxia started playing White Embers relatively late, so her level was generally behind the other players in the guild. Because of this, he didn't follow any groups and practiced blindly on his own. However, this method was not very efficient. Hence, she still became a disciple of a player in the game to increase the experience she gained. That person was the guild's #1 warrior, Mo Li. Usually, people who would come up with such cute names were either big and burly men or fat otakus. Therefore, Chunuangxia had always treated her master as a man. It could be seen that although Mo Li had a high level in the game, the way she did things was subtle and immature. It was as if she had never played MMOs before. In this era where the PC market was gradually declining, there were very few players like this. Hence, Chunuangxia guessed that her master was probably a primary school monk. In order to verify her guess, Chunuangxia had secretly asked her master when they were playing a dungeon together. The other party didn't seem to be scheming. Although he didn't reveal his true identity, he still gave her his WeChat ID under Chunuangxia's coaxing and pestering. He also told her to ask him for help if she needed any help. He also bragged that he was omnipotent, from destroying the world to killing demons and monsters. At that time, Chunuangxia naturally didn't take these words seriously. Moreover, because of the postgraduate entrance exam, she didn't continue to pester her master. In fact, she still didn't take these words seriously. However, yesterday, Mo Li should be one of the people who received the game. Based on her short message, she should have already played the game. Since that was the case, she might as well ask her for help. Just now, Mo Li wasn't online, so she had to use WeChat, which she hadn't used since adding her as a friend. Thinking of this, Chunuangxia took out her phone. The earth chi here isn't good. According to the Book of Burial, the earth chi shines from the bottom and the power is deep but slow. The earth chi nourishes the body and the power is floating but fast. The old Taoist pretended to walk around the police station and shook his head. He had an expression that said, "This is not going to be easy." He pointed at the center of the area surrounded by yellow lines. From what I can see, the murderous aura here is very strong and everyone has a murderous aura. Especially this circle, the aura is fierce. If you stay here for a long time, it would be strange if nothing happened. Xiao Jingyi didn't have much of an expression, but Su Xinxing was a little surprised. Although he didn't understand some of the technical terms, if he wasn't mistaken, the earth chi should be referring to the spiritual chi in the veins. Because of the previous incident with the veins, Jiang Jin's veins were indeed a little barren compared to other places. Chapter 428. Ahem, when this old man is performing the ritual, no one is allowed to disturb me. After the police finished preparing everything, the old Taoist priest slowly said while stroking his beard. The police couldn't help but look at each other. What are you guys still doing here? Get out. The fat superintendent immediately said to the other police officers. Superintendent, isn't this a bit too much? Some police officers expressed that they were in a difficult position. Performing the ritual in the police station was already a bit unpleasant to the public. If it also interfered with normal work, it was a bit too much. What's more, there were a lot of files in the police station that needed to be kept confidential and couldn't be casually opened to outsiders. They were still a bit worried about letting an old man of unknown origin stay here. What do you guys know? I'm doing this for the good of our police station. The fat superintendent roared while waving his fist. However, it seemed that the relationship between the superiors and subordinates in this police station wasn't that strict, so the police officers were still making scattered protests. But the work isn't done yet. There are already a lot of cases that are delayed due to the lack of manpower. Yeah, what if someone calls the police? Also, I have to go out later. Boss, you're preaching feudal superstition. I'm an atheist who upholds the core values of socialism. Superintendent, if you're doing a live broadcast of a woman dancing to Elysium Jodo, I'm going out. Hey, isn't that too eye-catching? The scene is too beautiful, I don't dare to look. Ahem, only at this moment do I hate my powerful imagination. Then I'll pay for the processing. Yeah, raise your salary. The group of police officers inexplicably changed the topic and made a ruckus. The superintendent orders all the bastards who just spoke to take turns cleaning the toilets for a week. The fat superintendent was so angry that he trembled and finally said with a twisted smile. In the midst of the police's complaints, the white-bearded old man smiled faintly. This old man naturally knows that you young people don't believe in a cultivator like me, but it's okay, I just need a while and you guys just need to stand outside the door. You don't need to close the door. You can even watch this old man perform the ritual from the door. This way you don't have to worry about this old man messing with your things, right? Sorry to trouble you, master. The fat police chief was overjoyed and said to the other policemen, why don't you thank the master for his magnanimity? He didn't argue with you bastards. Naturally, the response he got was booing. However, the fat director seemed to be used to being booed by his subordinates and was not angry. Instead, he looked at Xiao Jingyi and Su Shenxing. Well, little Xiao, he seemed to be thinking about how to persuade Xiao Jingyi to go out with him. The old man glanced at Su Shenxing's faint smile, and for some reason he felt guilty, so he coughed dryly. I've met these two young friends before. I believe that they won't disturb the ritual. If you're worried, Superintendent Chu, you can stay. Because he saw Su Shenxing and Xiao Jingyi standing together and they seemed to be in cahoots, the old man decided to protect Su Shenxing and ask him not to talk nonsense. Is that so? That's fine. The fat director rubbed his hands and stood to the side obediently. The policemen also walked out one after another, but they didn't go far. They gathered at the door or window watching the old Taoist as if they wanted to see what tricks he was going to play. The old Taoist first took out an apricot-colored array diagram and spread it on the incense table. It was embroidered with the 8 trigrams of Tai Chi and some other symbols from the Book of Changes. Then he untied a palm-sized purple gourd from his waist and put it in the center of the incense table, where the array diagram was, and pulled out the cork of the gourd. Although other people might not see it, Su Shenxing saw a gust of clear air floating out of the gourd. After a while it became translucent. The lower half of the gourd was like a wisp of green smoke, but the upper half was the spiritual body of a stooped man. Su Shenxing heard Xiao Jingyi next to him suck in a breath of cold air. You can see it too? Oh right, after such a long time of spiritual energy empowerment, it's not strange that you can see it. Xiao Jingyi was too lazy to complain, so he whispered to Su Shenxing, what is that thing? After studying the supernatural knowledge of Earth with Qin Xingyan for a while, mainly about East Asian Taoism and Shinto Taoism, Su Shenxing roughly guessed the truth of that thing. That's a possession ghost. Possession ghosts were formed in all kinds of strange ways, but generally speaking they were a kind of vengeful spirit. The depth of the vengeful spirit's resentment often determined the strength of the spirit. Most vengeful spirits remained in this world because they still had some kind of nostalgia for the real world. Therefore, they were much weaker than Su Shenxing's spirit ghosts, which were refined by cruel means and had only unforgettable hatred in their hearts. If a ghost spirit could kill a person like it was a game, then most of the vengeful spirits could only cause people to feel, I suddenly feel a little cold, similar to an air conditioner. Those that could affect the real world physically, such as lifting a piece of chalk, could already be considered as relatively powerful vengeful spirits. After releasing the possession ghost, the old man began to chant something at the incense burner table. However, after listening carefully for a while, Su Xinxing found that he couldn't understand what the old man was chanting at all. In other words, the old man was either blindly chanting, or he was saying the secret code he had set with the possession ghost. Since the secret code itself wasn't counted as a language, Su Xinxing's protection of all races couldn't do anything to it. Obviously, the possession ghost raised by the old man was a relatively powerful type. After the old man finished chanting, the possession ghost seemed to have received an order and began to cause trouble everywhere. Therefore, in the eyes of ordinary people, the police station office now looked like it was haunted. Well, that wasn't right because it was indeed haunted. The possession ghost threw documents everywhere and tried to make it look like a fairy scattering flowers. Strange characters were typed on the computer that was still on, and some white printing paper had bloody handprints inexplicably on it. As for the fact that it didn't leave bloody handprints on the documents, it seemed that the possession ghost still had some conscience. The policemen who were watching from the outside all exclaimed in surprise. The fat police chief who was in the middle of it all felt cold all over his body and his face turned pale. He didn't dare to move. Only Su Xinxing and Xiao Jingyi showed a helpless expression. After all this time, it turned out that the old man was a liar. Chapter 429. It would not be fair to say that he was a complete liar. After all, anyone who could control ghosts in this era was more or less half a Taoist. However, compared to risking his life to catch a ghost and exorcise it, the old man obviously felt that it was easier to get a reward by pretending to be a ghost. Seeing that the commotion was about to end, the old man pointed at the gourd and began to mumble again. Su Xinxing felt that it was probably a secret signal to wrap up. If everything went according to plan, the possession ghost would probably pretend to be sucked into the gourd. Then the old Taoist would continue to trick it and he would be able to get his reward this time. However, a small accident happened. When the possession ghost was about to return to the gourd, it noticed the black mist in the middle of the yellow line. So it curiously approached it as if it had discovered a treasure. It showed a look of joy and then took a deep breath. The black mist was sucked into its spiritual body. Master, how is it? Seeing that the supernatural phenomenon around them seemed to have stopped, the fat director hurriedly asked, "Did you manage to get the demon?" "Calm down." When the old Taoist saw that his possession ghost did not return to the gourd as ordered, he suddenly pulled a long face. He pointed 2 fingers at the possession ghost and said, "Hey! How dare you, demon? Hurry up and get rid of it." However, the possession ghost ignored him. Then a strange feeling spread in the hearts of everyone in the room. If they had to describe this feeling, it would probably be the air started to become restless. The old Taoist furrowed his white brows. He had not lived his life in vain. He immediately realized that something was wrong. He rushed to the incense table, grabbed the gourd, and was about to use a spell to retrieve the possessed ghost. However, he was one step too late. The lower body of the possession ghost was no longer a puff of green smoke. Instead, it had materialized into a pair of deformed legs. In addition, its body suddenly expanded like a balloon. In 2 or 3 seconds, it had expanded to the height of the ceiling. Its body was no longer the sickly and hunched body from before. Instead, it had become a giant. The yellow line was directly torn apart, and the surrounding desks were also pushed aside. Xiao Jingyi and the old Taoist priest stared at all of this with their mouths agape, while Su Xinxing stared thoughtfully. Only the fat director saw the 3 of them slowly raising their heads as if they were looking at something, but he couldn't see anything. He could only look at the supernatural scene in the office that seemed to have gotten worse. He couldn't help but feel anxious. "What did you see? What's going on here?" This is, the old Taoist muttered to himself in disbelief. "Old Su, what's going on?" Xiao Jingyi couldn't help but feel a little nervous. "You've ghostized, haven't you?" After all, it's inevitable that spirits and ghosts like things that are full of negative energy. After absorbing a large amount of this kind of energy, the vengeful spirits that are reluctant to leave this world will be eroded by the negative energy and become evil spirits that only know destruction and slaughter. Su Xinxing explained to Xiao Jingyi, by the way, in a sense, spirit ghosts are the most similar to evil spirits. I don't want to know this kind of little knowledge. By the way, can you deal with this guy? While Su Xinxing was still explaining, the evil spirit slowly stood up and knocked a hole in the ceiling. This made Xiao Jingyi even more nervous. This guy in front of him didn't look like a good person. Almost at the same time he asked this question, the evil spirit suddenly threw a punch at the old Taoist priest who was closest to it. The old Taoist priest was startled, but his movements weren't slow. He immediately squatted down and covered his head with his hands, narrowly avoiding the opponent's fist. However, his hair, which was originally tied up high, was swept away, and his hair suddenly became disheveled, making him look like a homeless person. Sure, but I refuse. Su Xinxing looked at the scene in front of him with a faint smile and replied, because I think it's very interesting. Interesting, your sister. Xiao Jingyi only had time to grumble a little before the evil spirit raised its fist again. Thus, the police officer simply took out his pistol, loaded it, unlocked the safety, wrapped the 50-cent bracelet plus 2 foot around it, and fired a shot at the evil spirit. The bullet neatly passed through the evil spirit's mist-like body and made a hole in it. But 3 to 4 seconds later the hole immediately disappeared. However, the evil spirit had shifted its target to Xiao Jingyi. After following Su Xinxing on so many missions, Xiao Jingyi could be considered to have seen a lot of storms. He could even talk and laugh with the Dragon King, so how could a mere cricket evil spirit? Thus he calmly took out the Yuan Rong sword, which was obviously much bigger than his waist bag, and threw it at the evil spirit without saying anything. Just like that, the Yuan Rong sword stabbed into the evil spirit's head and stopped the evil spirit's advance. Then Xiao Jingyi rushed forward and kicked the hilt of the Yuan Rong sword. The Yuan Rong sword directly pierced through the evil spirit's body and cut its upper body in half. The severely injured evil spirit no longer looked as nonchalant as before. Not only did its recovery speed slow down, but it also became more irritable. With a flurry of punches, it tore down most of the office. The fat police chief was so frightened that he hugged his head and lay on the ground like the old man. After that, the evil spirit accidentally ran in front of Su Xinxing and raised its fist at this seemingly powerless human. Su Xinxing sighed helplessly. Chapter 430. Sigh. Chu Nuangxia let out a long sigh. Although she had successfully contacted Jasmine herself, just from the voice on the phone, it was just as she had guessed. It was just a child. Even if the other party seemed to be very interested in the cursed game, to be honest, Chu Nuangxia did not think that a child could be of much help to her. However, humans were creatures who liked to gather together and lick their wounds. Compared to the anxiety of being alone, it felt much better to have a companion who shared the same fate. It was also because of this that she came here to look for the other party, even though she knew that the other party was just a child. This was Jiangjin's famous pedestrian street. Although it was not a holiday today, there were still many people coming and going on the street. After waiting for a while absent-mindedly, Chu Nuangxia suddenly felt as if someone was tugging at the hem of her clothes. She turned her head and the first thing that entered her sight was a dazzling golden color. It was an exceptionally beautiful little girl. She had a head of blonde hair that was very rare in the Celestial Empire. It was not the kind of dull or even ugly blonde that was dyed with hair dye. Instead, it was more dazzling, the kind that sparkled like gold. At this time, her long blonde hair was tied into 2 ponytails that hung behind her head. It swayed left and right with the girl's movements, making her look full of vitality. She was wearing a cute spaghetti strap dress that matched her temperament very well. The style with many lotus leaves and tassels seemed to be called Lolita or something else. Chu Nuangxia was not a person who liked to buy clothes and dress up, so she was not too sure. But in her heart she had a vague feeling that the person who chose this dress for the girl must be a lolicon. This child was so cute. Chu Nuangxia exclaimed in her heart. Chu Nuangxia was not tall to begin with. She could even be considered petite and dainty. Therefore, when she was still in university, she was ridiculed by her classmates for looking like a junior high school student. Because of this, she drank a lot of milk. Of course, it did not work. However, at this time the girl beside her was even shorter than her. If Chu Nuangxia's height was that of a junior high school student, then this girl was definitely an elementary school student. "Are you Emo?" she asked in a low voice. The little girl was silent for a moment. Then she kicked the girl's calf with her small leather boots. "It hurts." Although the other party didn't really kick her, the power of the round leather boots was not small. Nuangxia screamed in pain. "Call me master," the little girl said in a dissatisfied tone as Nuangxia hopped around the square on one leg. "That's too much. Who would suddenly kick someone like that?" Chu Nuangxia's impression of Mo Li immediately dropped a notch. She responded loudly. "I've already reduced my strength as much as possible," the little girl replied disapprovingly. Then, as if she had thought of something, she added, "Speak." Chu Nuangxia looked at the girl's small arms and legs and immediately retorted, "Liar. How could it be the lightest force when it hurts so much?" "There will be a bang." "Pa pa 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 pa," the little girl answered seriously. "That must have been an explosion. She's broken into pieces." Chu Nuangxia complained with an embarrassed face. Then she remembered that she was on the street and looked around. Sure enough, her interaction with the little girl had attracted a lot of attention. However, the onlookers didn't sympathize with her or feel indignant about the little girl's tyranny. Instead, they looked at them with gentle eyes that said, "Ah, what a cute pair of elementary school sisters quarreling." Unlike Su Shenxing, who was so thick-skinned that he could use his face to catch a nuclear bomb, Chu Nuangxia's personality was more shy. She suddenly blushed and stopped arguing with the girl. Instead, she took the girl's hand and ran to a place with fewer people. Initially, she was worried that the little girl would struggle or resist, but to her surprise, the little girl was very cooperative. "I say, this is the first time we've met in real life, right? Although it's strange for me to say this, it's better for you to be careful when you come out to meet your online friends in the future. Don't come to these deserted alleys. It'll be bad if you get abducted by human traffickers, understand?" Chu Nuangxia tried her best to persuade him. "It's okay. In places like this, Pa. Pa 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 pa. Are you a professional killer?" "Oh, I'm the devil." The little girl continued to joke with her seriously. However, her expressionless little face made Chu Nuangxia feel a little uneasy. Therefore, she decided not to dwell on this topic. Let's forget about the explosion. Anyway, let's get back to the main topic. "Master, how long did you live in the game?" "I forgot." "Not good." There was no progress in the conversation with this little girl. It felt like they had reached a dead end. For a moment, Chu Nuangxia wanted to give up the idea of teaming up with this seemingly unreliable girl. However, she immediately cheered up and began to ask about the little girl's actions in the game. "So that's how it is. About 20 minutes?" Chu Nuangxia estimated the little girl's game time based on the little girl's answer and her own experience in the game. Then, according to the game's one-day time, it's about 2 days. The little girl's death date should be 1 day earlier than hers. However, considering that yesterday had passed, if the death forecast was true, then this little girl only had 1 day left to live? Thinking of this, Chu Nuangxia couldn't help but feel a little sad. Chapter 431. In short, we only have 2 clues now. One is the game itself and the other is the dead president. Just exchanging names was enough to make Chu Nuangxia feel physically and mentally exhausted. However, now was not the time to rest. She forced herself to stay awake and told the girl about the information she had obtained after her investigation. Of course, she did not expect the little girl to be able to obtain any new clues from the information. The reason why she told the little girl this was most likely to satisfy herself. It was just like how some people like to preach at length even though they knew that the other party did not understand. As for the game itself, I tried to unpack it but it failed. In the end, I only got some documents full of garbled code. After that, I tried to upload it to Yunqiandu or something like that. Although it seemed like the upload was successful, the download result was the same. It was just garbled code. I guess it would be the same if I used Doudupe to transfer the files. So, it seems that this game can only be spread through a more narrow means like a USB drive. Therefore, we don't need to worry about it spreading on a large scale. As for the president, I still don't know why he sent this to us. Judging from the fact that he went to the police station to seek asylum, he should know that this game has a death curse. Maybe it's because there's a horror movie where if you show a cursed videotape to a certain number of people, you won't die. Maybe that's why he did this. However, from what happened to him, this kind of behavior is useless. The curse won't be lifted because of this. All in all, what I'm more concerned about now is where the president got this cursed game from. Maybe this can provide us with some clues to break the curse. Chu Nuangxia talked endlessly about her thoughts, but when she got a little thirsty, she sadly found that the little girl named Emily didn't seem to be listening. Instead, she grabbed something out of thin air, broke it, threw it on the ground, and stepped on it. Emily, are you listening to me? Oh, did this answer mean that she wasn't listening at all? Although she talked a lot, Chu Nuangxia's purpose was very clear from the beginning. She wanted to sneak into the president's house and investigate the source of the cursed game. Actually, the girl had also obtained the president's home address through some small means. The only reason why she hadn't acted yet was because she was waiting for others to act together with her. Someone in the guild should have already died from the curse, right? After all, in yesterday's game, there were guild members who only lasted for 10 minutes or so, and they only died for 1 day. Perhaps someone in the guild had already sensed that something was wrong. If he were to find someone else to work with now, they might be more reliable than this little girl called Molly. She hurriedly turned off the computer and went out to take a look. She saw Emily sitting on the wide and soft leather sofa. He was eating snacks that he probably found in the fridge. At the same time, he was controlling the character on the TV with a controller. This girl was actually playing games. Hey, we're not here to play games. This made Chu Nuangxia a little crazy. Do you want to play? Emily blinked and asked very innocently. No way. Chu Nuangxia walked quickly to the TV and unplugged the TV and the game console. You're so naive. This game console comes with its own screen and battery. Emily's face was expressionless, but his tone sounded a little proud. The developer of this game console must have lost his way. Chu Nuangxia couldn't help but complain. Her perception of the game console was still stuck at the little tyrant riding Wu Qiong. At this time, the sound of a key being inserted into the door lock suddenly came from the door. Chu Nuangxia was shocked. Someone was here. Chapter 432. Master, what's going on? After confirming that the supernatural phenomenon had stopped, the fat police chief tried his best to look calm as he asked the old Taoist priest. The old Taoist priest was naturally embarrassed. Unlike the fat police chief who couldn't see the possessed ghost, the old Taoist priest still had spirit vision and yin-yang eyes, so he naturally knew what had just happened. He didn't expect that Xiao Jingyi, who looked like a normal police officer, would have the power to fight against the evil spirit, and Su Shenxing, who he thought was a normal scammer, could even defeat the evil spirit with one punch. That evil spirit was transformed from his scam tool, so it was a bit awkward. Wait a moment, Xiao Jingyi suddenly said and shouted to the other police officers. I'm sorry, please look over here, I'll explain the situation just now. As soon as he finished speaking, all the police officers, including the fat police chief, heard a click, and after a white light flashed, they couldn't remember anything. Su Shenxing looked at the item in Xiao Jingyi's hand with an embarrassed expression. It was a device about the size of a pen, and the white light just now came from this thing. Why does this thing of yours look so familiar? Oh, I heard that the Super Administrative Office originally used this to erase memories, and it was similar to the police ID in Hong Kong movies. When you want to use it, you just have to open it and let people see the national emblem. The words attached to it also have the effect of modifying memories, but if a person is modified too much, they will easily become forgetful. Xiao Jingyi replied, it's just that there's someone in the development bureau who's a fan of that film, so he made this based on that thing. As the effect of modifying memories is faster and better, it's now a standard. What do you mean by memory? At this time, after being illuminated by the white light, the fat police chief finally came back to his senses and slowly asked, look here. Click. And so he was illuminated again. Su Shenxing and the others went to a corner of the police station to talk. After making them believe that the old Taoist priest's method seemed to be subtly useful, but also seemed to be useless, Su Shenxing and the others went to a corner of the police station to talk. I didn't know that the two of you had such skills. Now, I'm ashamed and have decided to go home and cultivate in seclusion for 3 years. I'll take my leave now. Seeing that the atmosphere was so awkward, the old man steeled his heart and wanted to take advantage of the situation to slip away. However, he was stopped by Su Shenxing. Senior, don't run away. We still have a lot to talk about with you. Although his words were very calm and his tone was very friendly, the smile on his face made the old man's heart skip a beat. According to the original information, the deceased was quite popular and he was an otaku, so there was no reason for anyone to kill him. In addition to the bizarre way he died, it was basically an accidental death. However, now that they had a new idea in the game, they might be able to find some clues. No, to be honest, the members of the Black Dove Alliance are quite honest, and our guild's ranking in the server isn't high. No one would purposely come after us, right? The old man was puzzled. It seemed like there were no clues here. Xiao Jingyi could not help but feel dejected. Then one last question. Su Shenxing continued asking, your name and your in-game ID. If it's convenient, please tell us. Not only did Su Shenxing and the others have something on him, but they also beat up the evil spirit so fiercely that the old man did not dare to play any tricks. Hence he answered honestly, my name is Yun Tianji and I have many IDs. Recently I've been using Undying Pit Tree. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.